What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Fortnite PlayStation Cup. It is your host for the day, Life with Panda. Joining me today, though, is Caster Lash. We're getting ready to break down some incredible action, my friend. Are you ready?
I am absolutely ready. Watching throughout the qualifiers, this was looking like an absolute show. And here in the finals of October, oh boy, from what we saw in September, this is looking to be even more prized.
It is, and I'm super excited to just dive into it. We got 6 games of EU Fortnite action to unfold here, and this is the creme de la creme, the top of the EU competitive console scene. Because guess what? This is PlayStation, folks, the official PlayStation Cup. Now, we got to break a few things down before we dive into game number 1, and starting with, of course, the format. Let's break down the way that this format works. Now, this is a solos competition, meaning that there are 100 individual players competing for their opportunity to be at the top of the leaderboard. Now, it's going to go over a total of 6 games, like I mentioned before. During these 6 games, anything goes for these solo players. They are competing to just walk away in one of those top 10 spots there in the leaderboard, and they're going to be doing it for some big money on the line here, Lash.
Big money on the line as we take a look over into the prize pool here. $2,000 for first place, as this is solos, folks. You don't got to worry about any splitting of that prize pool. That is all to yourself. You are earning it here, and that's what these top solo players will be doing. Is you go down the line throughout second all the way down into ninth. You're in that thousands of dollars of ranges here. As going into 10th, you get 800, and then 11th to 20th, 600, 21st to 30th, 500, 31st to 60th, 400, and 61st to 100 is automatically $200. So you made it here to the finals, and you're bagging out.
You're bagging out indeed, man. You literally just being here, you walk away with a couple $100. So honestly, that's super exciting to see here for the EU scene, and I'm excited to see how this is going to unfold. But we got to talk about how these players are getting points to put on the board, because realistically, that's super important. The point structure for any of these tournaments are going to define how they end up going through the solo format and going through this competition. Now, each elimination is going to be 2 points per elimination, meaning that's a pretty heavy elimination point threshold. However, Lash, you and I know when it comes to placement, getting 30 points for a victory royale is just as exciting as getting 10, 15 eliminations.
Big time facts. And now it does come with that risk factor, right? Getting those elims is very rewarding. 2 points per elimination. It's very similar to that FNCS like kind of format where you're able to kind of bounce back off of elims, kind of have that Malibuca and Mustache kind of environment in those. But like you said, it's solos. Environment's much more risk in those situations, and it's already a 5-point difference between Victory Royale and second place. So I'm thinking that players are going to be leaning more towards that side of elims.
I agree. I think there's going to be a healthy balance between the two, understanding that placement is going to provide a ton of value, but those eliminations are going to be just as important. Now, you might be wondering at home, when do we get this thing started? Well, game number 1 is almost underway. I hear the battle bus getting loaded in the background. So in a few moments, we'll be diving into the first game of the action. Now, here's the thing, Lash. Before I start a competition, and I always challenge my duo here on the mic, and you just happen to be my duo for the day. So here's my challenge to you, man. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so prediction time. Game number 1. How is it going to be won?
All right, I'm thinking we get a high ground victory royale, and I'm not only going to predict the zone where it's going to go, but I'm going to predict the player who's going to win the game. I believe this is going to be a Rave Cave Zone high ground victory royale from Pisowski, who won September's PlayStation Cup by a wide margin.
Legend. I mean, like he was so consistent. It was wild to watch. So you know what? I like that. I like that prediction. Game number 1 going his way. The whole competition potentially going his way. But Rave Cave and high ground. Okay, I'll give you that. That's a safe bet. That's a safe pick for sure. Because listen, high ground is strong. So I could definitely see it going that way. But when it comes down to Rave Cave as a zone, it's not one that we get to see often. So I would love for the day to start off with that.
That would be awesome. I mean, hey, Shia Wager and I are liking that similarity. We both like
Mhm.
our mountain zones. Vivid may not like those. It's all right. We forgive them, but we love our chaos, right? Controlled chaos is the greatest thing, and especially when we get into that meta bit. Well, hey, we got launch pads back in with throwable versions of them. You got shield bubbles
Mhm.
all about. Movement is crazy.
Movement is crazy indeed. And that's one thing we do have to talk about. Since the last PlayStation Cup, we've had incredible additions to the game, including those throwable launch pads. Now, an itemized section of the game. It's not just in your trap slot anymore. You actually have to pick that thing up and prioritize it in your inventory if you want to keep it for the game, which is going to be pretty, I don't know, pretty telling to say the least of how valuable launch pads truly were. Because between you and me, Lash, I've been hitting the VOD review a bit, and I don't see as many people holding these bad boys as I thought I would.
It's honestly going between region to region. I mean, if you go from EU to NA East, you're going to see a clear difference between chrome splashes to launchpad ratio. I mean, it's basically based off of the play styles of the team. If you're more of that low ground style of team, you're going chrome splashes. You're going for those picks on the low ground layer to where you can get those easy refreshes going all about. But if you're more of that, all right, high fly sky and team, it doesn't matter if we go down all spawn, then get a victory royale with most elims, we're going for that height.
Yeah, you know what? And listen, like we said before, man, high ground is such an important key part of a game of Fortnite. And having the high ground is going to be a make or break moment here for some of these players. But one thing I do want to talk about before we get into game number one is when to take high ground. Because a lot of these players, despite this being a solo competition, they're very used to these team modes. So duos and trios. Over the last few years, that's been the staple game mode in Fortnite. So for them, they may be thinking, okay, zone 6, zone 7, I'll go for height. Wrong. That is way too early to go for the high ground. You won't have enough material to maintain it unless you have like a harpoon and you could refresh through that. But again, still extremely difficult to do when you have the high ground. So I'm curious how these players are going to prioritize when to take high ground, because you and I both know when we dive into these solo competitions, which we don't get to see too often, that tends to happen. First few games, players go for height and they go way too early.
They go way too early indeed. But 8 zone, I believe, is what we're going to kind of see that, all right, we know this team's, or that we know this player is on high ground. You ain't
Mhm.
got no team by your side, and you're all alone, solo wolfing it up on height. So I believe that that 8 zone is when we're going to see that pillar of chaos up there high in the sky where everyone's just gliding around and they're all just fighting for it all. But I do believe that we are going to see a tremendous influence from the Evo Chrome rifle on that high ground,
Yeah.
because the layer of damage that you need to get to upgrade that Evo Chrome got decreased since last time as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is so true. And that is something extremely important that we need to talk about is the impact of the Evo Chrome weapons in this meta. While in the past, obviously, going to Herald Sanctum, for example, guarantees you that mythic Evo Chrome burst, we also, in the past competition, saw that it's very difficult to level it up via damage. Now, with some damage changes, it's become very easy to get that Evo Chrome burst where it needs to be just honestly a powerhouse weapon. So I'm actually pretty excited about that. I'm excited to see how these players are going to use it. And like you mentioned, use it from the high ground, because realistically, from the clips that I've watched and some of the VODs that I've watched, that's where it's strongest. It's not a mid-range weapon, despite it being an assault rifle. And I will tell you this, and I'll say this time and time again, trying to hit shots with that at medium to long range is near impossible. But once you get into that, not necessarily close range per se, but close medium range, all of a sudden that bad boy becomes absolutely terrorizing. So I'm curious how that's going to play out, but it's almost time here, Lash. Game number one is almost underway. And man, I tried to imagine what to expect. And I know I challenged you with this, but like it's just tough to call what we could possibly see here going into these first few moments.
It's so tough to call. And now I'm gonna take a little bit of advantage, considering I did play a little bit, kind of, I
Okay.
guess, practicing a little bit last night, a bit of the scrimmages, a bit of the actual tournaments in game, contender cup vibing out. And from what I've seen, chrome splashes on low ground, I mean, we mentioned it and kind of hinted it on it a little bit before, is the movement of these players, because you can
Hmm.
avoid those Evo Chrome burst shots from high above if you are able to play your layers and kind of swim in between. It's kind of like a more slippery baller, if you will.
You know what? I can see that. I'll give you that. I think the Evo Chrome or the Chrome splashes 100% are going to be something to watch. But I will say, I'm curious if that's going to be the priority, right? And I definitely personally think it will. But with so many mobility items now, you have those launch pads, you have the Evo or the Chrome splashes. Like there is definitely endless possibilities going into this competition. So I'm curious how these console players are going to play this out. Now, we do have some pretty notable names as far as people competing here. We got people, the likes of Bila in this competition, who is a console cup king, right? So this is going to be a pretty exciting competition. Not only do we have the best of the best from the actual console scene, we have some people stepping back into the console scene who have spent more time over in the old FNCS track.
Have indeed spent that time over there in the FNCS track, and it's going to be interesting to see exactly how they play it out. I mean, like you said, Biley, we got Pisovsky, we got Cozy, or even players like Teeny who have been so successful in the EU solo space, popping off in this Chapter 3 meta. So, yeah, it's going to be good watch.
It definitely is. It definitely is going to be a sight to see. But listen, you at home may be wondering, how do I join into this? How do I become a part of this? Well, don't worry. Lash and I got you covered. Go ahead and dive into compete.playstation.com right now. Make sure to check it out, get involved, get signed up for the next one because there are more to come. This is not the last PlayStation Cup you're going to see here, folks. So if you want to get involved, make sure to follow the link right here on the screen, compete.playstation.com. Get over there, get signed up for the future ones, and I'm excited to potentially see your name up here on the leaderboard with us.
And that's the great thing about Fortnite here. Open competition, 13 and up, or you can seriously pop off at any state, whether it be here in the PlayStation Cups, whether it be in any other in-game tournaments. These players are putting in the grind.
Yeah, they definitely are. And it takes a lot to get to this point. This is not an easy task at all. So if you feel like you're a strong player here in the Fortnite scene, this is your chance to show that. Grab your PlayStation, whether it's a PS4, PS5, hop on and hop into these games because this is an incredible opportunity not only to showcase your talents, but to also walk away with a big chunk of change, folks. Because again, everyone that is qualified today is walking, or they're top of the top, right? Is walking away with a couple $100, if not into the thousands. So this is your chance here. Open up that PlayStation. Turn the PlayStation on. It's time. Get signed up, get involved, and I'm excited to potentially see you all in the next one. Now, Lash, this map is changing non-stop, man. I don't know what is happening, but I'm excited to see how this continues to unfold because it's time. It is time here to get into game number 1 of the day. And we're going to see these map changes unfold live in front of us because the blimps are moving. The bubbles are moving. We see actual sections of POIs moving. So I think it's going to be a crazy watch here for the next few moments because you never know, in comparison to what we've seen in the past, you never know where these players are going to find themselves ending up.
Never know at all where they're going to go, especially with the balloons. This reminds me of the kind of Chapter 3 Season 2 kind of vibe where we have the blimps around the island and everyone's kind of just zooming all around, looking for those high ground peaks to where they can really get that advantage onto. We even, have a blimp back on the map that was once above Rave Cave. Now it's kind of hovering around that tilted area, which, from what we've seen from that little drop map in the peaks of where the players are going, tilted looks like a very, very hefty spot.
It does. It does. Tilted is definitely no joke. And I think we've known this since Chapter 1, but it's kind of exciting. We're thinking like, this is modern Fortnite, right? 5 years later, we're still talking about Tilted Towers. And for good reason, because Tilted Towers is definitely a highlight spot here on this current Chapter 3 map, but it's changing. Like we talked about, even Tilted is not safe here from these massive changes going on the island. So this is going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to see who ends up prioritizing Tilted or potentially changing their spot. Because Lash, you and I know we kind of have an idea of where players are going to land. But again, with so much changing, it can be very hard to predict.
It is very hard to predict. I mean, even you go through drop maps of every single tournament, players are switching up halfway through the tournament, at the very end of the tournament. You never know exactly where they're dropping, but hey, we get the general idea and the hot spots of where players are going. But now we get the actual thing, because here we go, folks. Game number 1 of the EU Fortnite PlayStation Cup, and we're jumping into the bus.
Here it is, the start of the day, and we were talking about tilted towers. It looks like if you're landing in that tilted area, you're gonna be starting off with a little supply crate.
Little supply crate, chopping out. That's some solid loot there, because you have that possibility to be able to get that throwable launch pad, which is huge for rotation, because it does come in that guaranteed slot. Whether you get shield bubbles or a throwable launch pad, you're going to be absolutely vibing. But we're kicking it over here to Chrome Jam Junction, the POI that's changed his name so many times, but now it's full of chrome, and we got 2 players dropping in here.
And this is a good start for them. Look, I'm going to be honest. Logjam, it's one of my favorite POIs. And to be fair, they have kind of messed with my spot here quite a bit in the last few seasons. But this is definitely one of my favorite spots on the map. Actually, part of the reason, if you don't know at home, is my boy last year showing me the strats of this area. Because if you can knock a tree on the outside, obviously you can't do it in this particular mode. But if you can do it in your 0 build modes, you can actually break the trees down and basically level the entire POI to loot fast. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
It is a very, very good thing to witness go down there. But now players are starting to get that tumbling going, all right? They want to be the logs in the battle here. As we see there in the Elim feed, very early off spawn, Pizovsky picking up an Elim. So he's already got 1 on the board. I think he's getting ready for what I had said earlier.
I agree. I think he's just starting. I think we're going to see a pretty aggressive start here from him, because that's what we saw last time. And to be fair to him, that's the best play if you're a good fighter. You want to start off strong here in game number 1 while all the nerves are high for all the other players. Take advantage of it. Walk into boxes. Get involved in these fights, because if you know what you're doing in a fight, this is the one time I strongly believe you can catch some of these players off guard.
I mean, that's the thing, where you're able to take advantage of somebody else's weakness, especially if you are a veteran in the scene and you can truly know that you will win the fight. You are able to capitalize here and be able to take advantage. And here, even with map awareness, where it comes into play, where you're able to kind of drop down, as we see here on our screens, where he was able to take advantage of that mushroom. But left out in the open, this is where map awareness also comes into play, to where you get left out, 0 materials, and out in the open.
That's tough. That is tough, Flash. Yeah, probably not the start he was looking for. I'll be honest. But you know what? That's the nature of the game, and that's the benefit of this being 6 total games. There are still 5 more opportunities for him to figure out his off-spawn situation and come out successful. So I'm excited to tune back in with him a little bit later, despite him being out early this game. But now we focus on Mez. Mez here, I can feel it right now, is probably a sniper king or queen, sniper champion. Let's say that. So Mez here with the sniper rifle in hand, looking to connect 1 shot to start off the fight. Would be huge if it could land on the Travs, but no, does end up missing that. And now it looks like Travs actually just pushing directly into another player.
And this is where elims are going to come in massive, right? These players want to be able to get on the board and get on the board fast. So for Trabzon, he's going to be able to go over to this left end. However, this is where you have to be kind of taking a peek at, all right, where's everyone dropping around me? Is now has to dip, kind of sneak up a little bit, hopefully find a little bit of ground. And that's exactly what's going on over here at Rave Cave as well. These players are ready to pick up more and more elims as it goes on.
You know, it's good looks. It's good looks for these players to start off a bit aggressive. Another benefit here of being aggressive early on in game number 1 is kind of creating that dominant presence in your drop spot. I think a lot of these players don't take advantage of that, especially when they're contested. Fortunately for these guys, and EU being probably the strongest fighting region, we're going to see quite a few off-spawn engagements in these first few games.
Now, you just sparked up an entire conversation that EU is the best fragging region.
Okay,
I don't know. Hey.
That doesn't make them the best region. Let's be clear here.
True,
I'm just saying,
true.
you know, there's some good fighters.
True. Hey, you got those Malibucas or mustaches. Hey, you know, you
Hmm.
kind of go alongside where 11 goes to the comparison of like, all right, you know, can this team, can this player beat the, can they win in the situation of where Malibuca and mustache are on your wall? Yeah, I don't know. Hey, I guess we'll have to find out for some of these players.
We'll definitely have to find out here, and it looks like we probably won't have to wait too long because Noah, if he sees where Trabs is going to try to take advantage of that. But no, it looks like he's actually very focused on the vault here, just down below, and it is Zavi Fishy hanging out there in the vault. But if you're T2S Noah, you spent a ton of material to get the position that you're in now. You're either got to do one of two things: commit or get out of there and start moving. And it looks like Noah's going to choose to do just that.
Yeah, it's gone. Noah is out of here, just making sure that the materials are farmed up. And metal, especially in this season, is where you need to be most aware of. All right, this is the pinpoint of where I'm getting materials. This is the pinpoint of where I'm able to kind of dip and evade anyone around me and be able to safely farm, which is exactly what Noah is doing here, to where you can kind of play the back end of zone, play in the position of where, all right, I'm gonna kind of backside rotate this, and I'm gonna be absolutely chilling.
Absolutely chilling indeed. And realistically, moving is probably the best play. I'm going to be honest. Even though there's multiple options, you can't really spend too much time, especially when you're not in zone. Even Semb here, who is on the edge of zone in tilted towers, probably isn't safe. It's better off just getting moving. Get in zone, get in a nice spot, and then wait for your opponents to come towards you. Focus then on getting those crucial tags to avoid storm surge damage.
And I'm going to go with a little bit of a altered quote here. It's not a tactical sprint. It's a marathon to the victory royale here for these players. You know, they're zooming, they're thumbing, but they don't want to be zooming and thumbing too fast. You know what I mean? You gotta make sure you're playing that position and, you know, take advantage of these kinds of positionings where you're able to go up on top of these high kind of balloon areas, as Fox J, one of our top competitors here today, looking for those Storm Surge tags like you mentioned, and especially with this now altered Storm Surge, considering back in last season is now in every single game mode. These players are still kind of learned, to be quite frankly.
Yeah, still learning and still a lot on the board here for players like Fox J. They want to make an impact. They want to find themselves finding a ton of success here going into the later parts of this game. But it's just a matter of being a little bit more patient, learning what your opponents are going to do, and take advantage of some weaknesses that you see around you, because realistically, that's what game one is all about. It's about observing what is happening with these other players, because otherwise you're just not able to predict what they can do.
I mean, that's the thing here, especially in solos. You cannot predict what the other person will do. It literally becomes 10 times much harder because you don't have that other teammate to kind of go on your back and kind of initiate any kind of battle in the midst of things, as Destru is looking for those kind of peaks so that way they can get the damage above and anywhere that they can. And look at this loadout here. I'm loving it right now with that legendary hammer and that legendary ranger shotgun, which packs a punch.
Packing a punch indeed. You know, I'm actually curious, and I want your take on this, because personally, in this shotgun meta, I'm still rocking the Prime. I think, in my opinion, it's definitely my go-to. Maybe it's because I miss a first shot now and then. I'm not gonna lie to you, but it's the one I'm definitely leaning more towards. Now, in your opinion, which one are you rocking here in Chapter 3, Season 4?
Listen, it's the shotgun I just mentioned here. It's the Ranger shotgun. I'm a big Ranger kind of person, all right? You know, like I mentioned earlier, I was playing a little bit, practicing it up, you know, getting into the mindset of the player here. And honestly, that big kind of pack a punch shot from that Ranger, granted you have to reload right after, but that quick reload time comes in massively when you're in those kind of moments, especially with a hammer assault rifle to back it up. You are going to be big time vibing.
Big time vibing, big time chilling is my man Lash here on the mic with me. And look, I'm gonna be honest, this is the start I kind of anticipated. While there was some aggression here early on, because it's game one, we've seen it slow down quite a bit in the second zone. But unfortunately for these players, they're gonna have to pick it up quick, because Storm Surge is going to become a factor very, very soon.
Got to get up that pace and get a move on here. And that's why I believe snipers, and this is where snipers are going to definitely come into play here, because with 84 players alive right now, with snipers in the meta, that is going to dwindle down your ability to peek anywhere and pretty much everywhere that you go upon. And hey, in this moment, you got to make sure your movement is on par. I've seen a lot of tweets on the timeline to where, hey, you got to get your movement up, especially in this season. With those snipers having 3 bullets in a chamber, you got to be ready.
You got to be ready, set, and get ready to go, because this is a big opportunity for a lot of these competitors here today, because not everybody here is the experienced, well-known name, household name, right? So this is the opportunity for players, even like Ghost Sive here, to just make a huge name for themselves in this competition, because the PlayStation Cup here is no joke.
No joke at all. It's highest of highest tier competition. And this is where you got to bring your A game, as players are now kicking in the rotates. You saw that Storm Surge now becoming a warning, right? Players can still get that damage up, you know, get that damage up, not your funny up around here, so that way your rotates are as crisp as they possibly can. And here with the chromified rotates, with those chrome splashes, I'm liking these kind of dead side rotates, if you will, from Ghost Hive, as kind of just chilling. And I do believe they may take the balloon up here high in the sky.
That would be the play. I mean, at this point, obviously he is in chrome form, which means he can move a little bit quicker against the storm. However, that balloon, you can't match the ability to move as quickly as you do using those balloons, especially the double bounce off the top. I mean, come on. Like, that is actually, in my opinion, a better fix for mobility than launch pads in the trap slot.
1000% agree. And that's why, hey, I'm seeing it as a very, very common thing here on the EU region, where we're seeing those chrome splashes become more popular and coming into play, like we mentioned in the pre-show. This is where teams, and we start to see that differential of movement. And here for Cade, he's kind of going like the almighty 1 of 99 out here, because he's got those chili chug splashes, which, if you don't know already, you can only get via the new hollow chest, which require 2 keys to be able to get and open. So my man went a long way to get them. Hopefully can make them valuable.
I think he can. Look, I'm gonna be honest. I think Cade has the potential to walk away using those chili chug splashes to the best of their ability. We're seeing it right now. Look at his movement speed. It's absolutely insane. Tactical sprint on top of the chili chug splash has you zooming across not only Shimmering Shrine, but this map, which unfortunately for Cade, they're gonna have to move, because you see the edge of zone just on his back, and it has pulled far.
That is a mile away, and we have a lot of known competitors out here on the edge of zone. They know how to hit this rotate, and now it's all about how they can put it into action here. Like you mentioned, the tactical sprinting plus those chili chug splashes is going to be massive, but you can't just be sprinting out in the open, or otherwise you can be susceptible to, like we mentioned, those sniper shots. You can be susceptible to big beams from that Evo Chrome burst, and then that's where you're in some big trouble here. As you can already see on the bottom right half of your mini map, all these players are kind of just stacked on the edge of the water.
Stacked here, and I bet you some of them do need surge damage, which is going to be that factor now that it's active. These guys are looking left, right, and center to try to connect just a few shots there to put themselves above that damage threshold. We even see, as we're sitting here with off Nafri here, 337 dropping to 333. That means more players out there are getting the damage, causing their threshold to continue to drop. So we're going to keep watching that closely here, as just a few more players need to go down before this surge turns off.
Lightning is striking, but not for Teeny here, as looking for anywhere that he could possibly pick up onto. It's chromified right now, and off Teeny goes for the rotates, but the chrome now gets destroyed, because this, like we mentioned, cannot go out in the open without taking some big punishment back, and he doesn't have any of those white HP heals. So Teeny now gonna chromify, get to the front end, and this is the main core piece for any of these players to be able to do here. And Griff is truly struggling right now, being brought down to 19 HP, a sliver left to go, but gets a little bit of time to pop those heals.
A little bit of time to heal back up, but that's a lot of time that he's not connecting shots. And with how impactful Surge is now with these more recent changes in the last few seasons, you have to continue to be active. You have to continue to look for these crucial tags to keep you above the threshold. And just even a few moments of time spent having to heal up is a few moments that you're not able to connect those shots, and ultimately can result in you going down because you fall below the threshold. Fortunately here for Griff, though, 300 plus damage above for now, but that's not a lot considering how much this will impact and how much this will change going forward. So Griff still needs to connect some shots to feel a little bit more comfortable before these moving zones.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. He has an extra launch pad right down below, but got a little bit too greedy for it, left out one, and ends up going down. So the back end of zone is now open to anybody here, and they're looking for those tags. Two players extremely weak into the back end. One of them ends up going down to what appears to be the big lightning from the sky. So now everybody here is kind of waiting for the bait to go out and hopefully able to hit those rotates, because there's also some left loot around with some launch pads.
Yeah, there's a lot still left out here, and if anybody can get to it, I mean, take it. Run with it. So they're going to do that. They're going to do just that. But players still find themselves set up here and holding on. Unfortunately here for NDZ, you see here set up. We saw them actually compete last time as well in the PlayStation Cup. They have chromified their box, meaning that you can't edit any of those builds, which unfortunately puts you at a bit of a disadvantage when they are chromified like that, because you can't gather intel on what's going on around you. You also can't connect crucial surge tags, and that's going to definitely affect him long term if he doesn't move out of that box. Now though, Leox dropping down with the chrome splash starts to make the rotate, and that's what we're going to see from a lot of these players. It's time to move here, folks. You can't spend too much time, or you're going to find yourself not only eating some damage from Storm, but eating some damage from players who have already positioned themselves on the edge.
And that's where that play was so gigabrain for being able to get ahead of everybody else that was back there. You can already see almost half the lobby already back there, utilizing now all of the community launch pads to go off into the sky. So Viola now getting ahead. You can already see Noah, Leo, all getting into the mess of things. And now everyone's pushing here towards the edge. So things get a little bit more claustrophobic for these players to be able to get that damage down. And for Leox here, he knows these are beachfront players. They've been here for a good amount of time, and that's where I can capitalize on refreshes of big materials, ammo counts, and even rotation.
You know, for Leox, he didn't really have to go far. He lands just southwest of Shimmering Shrine, which means he didn't really have to make too much movement to get to the position that he's in now. So that kind of speaks to the value of zone pooling in your favor and the advantages that it can bring, especially in solos, because when everybody's looking at everybody in a solo game mode instead of just teams looking at one person as another team rotates, whatever the case may be, it makes it way more difficult to navigate. So for players like Muddy Fishy, who probably didn't have as easy of a rotation, they find themselves here and they're doing everything they can to stay here.
Listen, he's got that fishy in his name, and I believe he's about to recharge that Who Fishy Chapter 3 or Chapter 2 Season 3 kind of energy. That solo kind of movement, I believe it's juicing throughout Muddy Fishy. And with already 3 elims on a board, hey, I don't know. I might swap the pick here. I don't know.
Okay. I see you. Listen, Cypher SMG 101, and this might be a 101 class here for you, Lash, has that legendary sniper rifle. I bet you he gets 3 elims with this before the game's over.
3 elims, you think? With the sniper
alone. With the sniper alone.
With the sniper alone, 3 elims. I don't know. That's a little bit kind of bold here, especially with Cypher SMG. It's not like it's Cypher Sniper 101. I mean, that'd be a different story.
Yeah, but I mean, this season isn't SMG, so he had to pick up a new hobby, and that hobby just happens to be that legendary sniper rifle. Watch, I'm telling you.
I'm ready for it. But here we go off into the rotates for these teams and players all around, as Vixovsky now getting ahead to the front end, as kind of getting a little bit more trapped, as this is the dangerous thing of this zone. We saw this very many times throughout the last FNCS, where we saw a lot of these zones come into play, where we kind of noticed water all around. So it's a new adaptation because we don't necessarily get these zones as common as it should be. But Versaski now has everything in the inventory to be able to capitalize. You see those chili chug splashes, you see the extra heals as well, and that epic Evo Chrome burst, and he's ready to take upon the beams of everyone in the back end as he picks up another elim.
And a huge elim there onto Nox to start that off. Now, not only does he get that elim, but he is going for the refresh. You see him using hard material to branch out there. Massive. That's what you need to do in a situation like that, because as soon as you expose yourself, especially in EU, you're gonna get tagged up. So for him, smart play not only to go for the material, the additional resources, but also using those hard materials to branch out, because time and time again, we see players, they have wood builds ready to go and they start to branch out. And unfortunately, it's not gonna hold too much of a defense for you.
Not at all gonna hold that defense. As players are hitting the rotates once again, they notice that 6 zone is out of the play, and Launcher is now looking for everywhere to go, kind of scrambling upon, because we're only 30 builds here. It's a risky spot down there to be on low ground as Cypher SMG, your guy out here with that sniper, hopefully maybe looking for a couple of those peaks, and he's actually going to dip back to hit that launch pad once again. A very risky play once again, especially with a player like Byla on the high ground.
Byla on height, man. What a fitting way for game 1 to go. I mean, look, we talked about predictions early on, and you know what? I should have said this. I should have said Byla's going to go for the high play, because that's just textbook Byla. And so we see him up here on the high ground now, doing a good job of maintaining it. But will he be able to maintain it for the long term? That's the question, and that's the problem we presented there in the pre-show. We talked about how material is so difficult to come by once you're up here, and taking it in the 7th, 6th, and 7th zone is not easy in solos.
Not easy at all, and you noticed it there. 6th zone, you said 6th zone is not the play for the high ground, at least that early. It's too early for these players, especially with launch pads back in the meta, as Zelda is now looking to go for the opposite position, going down towards that low to grow kind of layer here, as looking for everywhere to go to possibly find a firm foundation layer. Great position to get in to the front end, as 7th zone rotating with 40 more seconds, found himself in a great position now to outlast the next 25 players. Will be massive for the placements.
Yeah, not only is he walking away with that, right, he's also walking away with some placement points. This is something that he wasn't entitled to just moments ago. We literally saw his points flip from 9 to 11, and it's going to continue to grow the longer he stays alive. And that's the name of the game. Once you're in a position like that, you're not worried about surge. You're just worried about trying to go as high up on the placement board as possible.
Looking for the placement, as Scoffing is kind of just lurking around here. Does have those chrome slashes in the inventory to hit the rotates. Now, hopefully being that with the big players like Pasovsky officially going down there in that 20th place spot, hopefully lurking around for anything they could possibly get, as Vazlo also in a creepy position, maintaining that high ground in the chromified form. Now looking for the frags, as this is the maintaining opposition, and a big shot connects, but all the blobs are going all around, and Valo needs to get into the zone, but now enters a 0 build area, and here comes the tornado.
No, unfortunate there. You see Byla actually just getting tossed off into Storm. This is a tough end here for these players. Having to just try and stay on the grip of the tornado is tough, and it's going to continue to push them around here. It's just a matter of who will be able to survive the tornado's wrath here, as Vazlo, Leo still in this game.
They're still in it, but now it's all down to who's gonna end up going down to the zone. Vazlo is playing with the Storm here, and Leo with the Nemesis able to get down to the ground and pick up that first game victory royale.
Not only that, 4 eliminations on the board. That's 8 points in eliminations alone, plus the 30 points for that victory royale. That's honestly a solid game 1.
A very solid game 1 indeed. And we mentioned them kind of in that early rotate to that 5th zone. A great early rotate to get over to that beach side, and then be able to take advantage of a good kind of quiet mid-ground position, transition it, knowing that map knowledge down there on low ground.
Yeah, I mean, look, map knowledge is key. Leo did, honestly, probably the best play in that situation. Understood that he had Chug Splash in the inventory, went into Storm to get completely away from the tornado after going down low, which is important, because if you just go up to the top of the tornado, jump down, you're going to be in the air for too long, right? He goes immediately down to the bottom of the tornado, launches himself in a storm, uses the chug splashes to survive. Unfortunately, no one else could quite get their footing, to say the least. And ultimately, that led to Leo's win, and a huge win at that. 38 points is a great way to start.
A great way to start indeed is that leaderboard placement is going to be massive as we take a look upon the standings here after that incredible game number one. As now, hey, Leo, my man up there at the top, but Voslo now has a big pickup game along with everybody down in that second to 10.
Yeah, I'm looking at this here, and we talked about NDZ, who was in that chrome splashed box, and unfortunately just didn't have a hold of being able to edit the walls. Clearly, that didn't slow him down. 5 eliminations on the board, 17 placement points. That's a huge game. 27 points in total is no easy task there in game number one, and he's running away with it. Now, another point I want to mention, NDZ did an incredible job in the last PlayStation Cup. So I have a feeling he's looking to repeat that, if not do better in this one.
That would be quite incredible to see. I mean, all of our returning PlayStation Cup players showing up once again, showing that they are the best through and throughout, no matter the story. As we kind of take a look down there, 19th place, I want to focus on Pixovsky. Kind of just chilling there, went down a little bit early. Unfortunately, they're falling with only 11 points, but it's all good. I mean, you even have players like Vila, Muddy, all just kind of chilling in that moment. And hey, Cypher SMG, now we need to see that kind of panda prediction into you. We need those sniper shots coming into play.
Okay, look, I don't know. I think he lagged. There's no other way he didn't walk away with 3 sniper eliminations. But maybe, you know what? I actually meant the rest of the time in all 6 games. I didn't mean just in that game. I'm going to walk that one back a little bit, because look, it happens, right? These players in the top 20, though, they have a great start here to the day, but it's going to be important for them to not slow down. Now, if you find yourself in 21st or 40th, you have to change the pace. You have to start hitting the gas pedal, because realistically, the more time passes, the more it's going to be difficult for you to climb into the top 20, climb into one of those big money spots, which is what everybody has their eye on right now.
Now, this is the thing where in solos, you got to keep that mindset correct here. You may be in that 21st to 40th place, but you got points. That's the thing you got to kind of look at here. In a 100-player lobby, getting points, even in your first game, is huge, because that is a big momentum shift above 60 other players, where you're able to very bigly capitalize above everybody else below you.
Yeah, and capitalizing on that, or adding to that, I should say, you kind of have to understand what happened, right? Game one is the indicator of how the rest of your games are going to go. Use this as a tool, a resource to improve the next 5 games based on what you experience. You get an understanding of the people that land around you. You know how to fight them, how to position yourself appropriately. Is somebody rotating towards you? Are they rotating away from you? Can you catch them off guard as they rotate away? These are all things that these players need to be thinking about going into the next game, because this is all information that can now be gathered since game one is done.
It's big information that you need to take upon. And a couple notes for a lot of these players that we've seen there, kind of usually up at the top. You see Fox J, Cozy, and then as you look upon here, 61st to 80th, you see some big name, Left the Rooney, Griff out there in the business. And hopefully, they're going to be able to make a big comeback, because now we're hitting that 0-point range. And a little kind of motivation, if you will, for these players is that, hey, you're playing the game of competitive Fortnite. And if we've taken upon anything in Fortnite competitive history, is that no matter how far you are in the tournament, you can make a big comeback.
You absolutely can, especially with 2 points per elimination. You get a big elim game, a solid win. I mean, look, you're back in it, right? After game number one, we see 38 points as the top spot. 38 points is very achievable, right? You get 15 eliminations in a game, that's 30 points alone. And it's not while it's not an easy task to walk away with 15 eliminations in a solo match, it's still possible. And I think it's possible for these players to understand that, go into this next game and say, you know what? I'm going to be a little bit more active in looking to connect some shots and potentially walk away with a few more elims.
That's the whole key point. I mean, we saw it a lot there in kind of that first 2 minutes of the battles where we have those hotly contested drop spots where you see the cloudy condos, you see the chonkers, you see the tilted towers where they're lumped together. Now it's all about like, all right, are we going to see this aggression kind of ramp up? Because kind of sideway that over into what we saw from Storm Surge. I mean, do you think that's going to maybe dwindle a little bit more, or do you think that's going to stay as a constant pace?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we'll have that question answered here momentarily as game number 2 is now underway. Lash, break down where these players are landing.
They're all dropping over to that west side, and that northwest side is the big key for these players dropping in here, as they're just kind of looking around where exactly they can finally find their firm and foundational ground here. As we kind of notice, all right, these players are going for their best positions or their most known positions, as we see that as a very common theme in competitive Fortnite, where A, they're going to land at their most known drop spot. You know, they drop those drop maps ready to go. And then B, they're going to go for the most aggressive one, where they know they can truly take upon D-Dodger, though. Hey, looking good as we tune in high in the sky over here at Cloudy Condos. As, hey, as many people may say, one of the best POIs here, eh, Panda?
Yeah, it could be one of the best POIs. I mean, it's not... I know SPG argues that this is the best solo POI, but you know, in my opinion, the old Chrome Junction has my heart. And it's going to continue to be my solo spot for a while. But you know what? Cloudy Condos definitely competes here with some of these other spots. It's just a matter of your preference going into these games.
Hey, preference is key. I mean, I mentioned it as we were kind of dropping into that battle bus of where, hey, are you going to prioritize your most known drop spot, or are you going to prioritize that aggression here to where you can get these elims early off spawn, as taking this lighthouse of positioning is going to be huge, as we see on our screen with Alex.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a huge start. And realistically, while there's not a lot of value loot-wise to this little spiral here, it has a huge advantage when it comes to the vanity points, the visuals you have across Cloudy, because you can identify not only where your opponents are, but where they're rotating to. So you can guess, hey, they're rotating left. I don't have to fight them because they're just going to full disengage. Or if they're starting to rotate a little bit closer to you, you might have to start taking some shots.
Hey, that's what you gotta do. It's the story writing that we're building here. Take the shots, get above that storm surge, get those elims, because I mean, we mentioned in game number 1, this is maybe the most aggressive region as far as being able to get those frags onto the opposing players, as we see the players also getting a little bit closer here. Maybe a little bit too close to the fire where they might get burned. Here's Griff, a player that we see at 1 point on the leaderboard, looking to make a tremendous comeback and may be able to get the jump here with another elim.
Another elim would be huge, but it's just a matter of catching this player off guard. You see Roman clearly knows that a player is close, knows that somebody is in the vicinity, but doesn't quite know exactly where they are. And Roman now actually looking behind the tree, using the edit there on the ramp. So smart there to start this fight here for Roman season. But Griff is going to be able to backtrack just a bit, get back to the house, and now take high ground as Griff is looking to connect some major shots.
Now is where they have to be careful, though, because you do have those kind of mountains right above Grim Gables that easily could be big spots for anybody that's like, ooh, I hear some shots. Ooh, say less. I like the sound of that. I like the sound of chaos. But however, for now, they're going to disengage and bring the fight elsewhere. Is kind of expand upon their loot palette right now, as Griff is going to be like, all right, you know, maybe I'll play a little bit more placement this game.
And you know what? That might not be a bad idea, right? Placement is definitely going to be a huge factor in all of this. Now, it really does come down to who can get a decent amount of eliminations while also getting good placement. But you never know when players are going to go down, especially in solos. There's no clear path to define who's going to find success here in this game. No matter if you have the POI to yourself, no matter if you have an area to yourself, none of that matters. What does matter is how you play this game out with what you are given. And ultimately in solos, that's the toughest thing to define, and that's the toughest thing to predict. So it's going to be interesting to see how these players do, especially players like Yo Falls here, landing over near what once was just the Joneses, now has changed into Fort Jonesy.
And there's a reason, right? Hey, I think it's a little bit more of a underlying reason. You know, everybody now wants to drop here because it is the fort. It reigns in just via the name dominance, right? So for False, kind of dropped it in over towards that gas station just to the east of it. I like this positioning where kind of takes a couple peeks over into Fort Jonesy, looks for those possible tags, looks for those even possible elims to get upon to, and then being able to be like, all right, this won't work. Let me dip back here, get it ahead of the zone, which is what we saw come out very successful in game number 1.
Finding success in game number 1 for sure. But will that success continue? That's what we're going to see here as the game continues on. And number 2 is fully underway here with Roman Season just healing up. It does look like they've taken a bit of damage. I'm curious what may have happened. I do see a few players there now starting to fight here just in the close distance. So for Roman, it's just a matter of getting involved in this fight at the right time, getting some big shots. And it could be right now as Roman takes a few shots. Unfortunately, does not connect, but he's in the fight.
In the fight, in the business, hacking on the wall on top of Noob. And now Noob has to get out of here. But unfortunately, gonna go down here as a couple tags rained in there from a third party, as 2 players are lurking all around, and Roman was able to barely get away with that elim. Now gonna be able to transition back here, and look at that, utilizing the chrome splash to be able to shoot the tree and get more chrome splashes, a theme that is coming in massively, especially for the players that want to play that meta.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think chrome splashes, you have to prioritize though. In his search situation, using the assault rifle ammo there made sense to get the chrome splashes because he had near 300, right? For a player like, I don't know, let's just take a Byla, for example. Let's say Byla has only 100 AR ammo to work with, or medium ammo to work with. That's not a lot. So you have to be mindful of the current situation that you're in before risking using too much of that material, too much of the resources that you've gathered already. Because after the start of the game, it's very difficult to get some more resources back in the inventory.
And it's the realm of preparation, being sure that your not only drop spot is on key, but also your rotational pattern. I know we've seen it a lot more, especially in these kind of situations where you're on the back end of the zone. You are really hot in the area and the atmosphere of where players are kind of swarming over. They hear those shots, and this is a big rotational pattern that a player like Santic is going to have to be very aware of, playing box to box against this opposing player.
Box to box is Santic, though, as he just continues to hold on. It does look like he wanted that engagement, but other players in the distance said, nah, fam, I'm not going to let you have that. So the fight is now a bit on the back foot. Santic just looking to use a half pot whenever he can, but with Avoid Henry just on the wall and continuing pressuring him, it's going to be tough. I don't think he can do this unless Henry decides to take a bit of a break. But no, as I say that, he takes the break. Now breaking in, though, he's looking to connect, but Santic fully gets that half pot off, putting him in a much better place health-wise. And no, even though he had the health advantage, Henry is able to take him out.
How in the world did Henry win that? I don't know, but I could tell you that for sure based off his name. He definitely avoided some crucial shots coming back down onto him, as, hey, even with a player in the distance, he's like, all right, I win these. This is my game that I win and I take upon. As getting another elim there on the board is also going to be massive. We mentioned there early how you're able to go up more and more with 2+ points per elimination to where you add to your total point count. And that comes in massively, especially once you start getting farther and farther and racking up that placement.
It definitely does, but I'm curious. You have to be careful on this mountain. For players like, they're positioned up and they should be fine. I think there won't be any issues there for them because they have the builds already existing in place. Now, we just watched another player literally rotating on what was an undeveloped side of the old Daily Bugle, now Lustrous Lagoon. You have to be very careful because all it takes is that one headshot sniper shot and you're out. So if you're not defending yourself with proper cover, it's very risky to take a side of the lagoon like that.
It is indeed very risky, and especially as you mentioned that zone. I don't know. This looks like a very, very similar zone from what we saw last game here, Panda. The mirror zone coming into play as we go over towards that water area, the beach side now, kind of into that movement. So, hey, for these players that know how to do the same exact pattern or even refine what they did last game, they're going to be ready.
They're going to be ready, set, and it's time to go because for Pila, they need to connect some shots here. They have a great spot in zone thus far, and there are tons of players that are going to have to rotate in the direction just north of him. So you see him immediately eyeing that north side of the zone, waiting for a player to make a mistake, waiting for somebody to creep just enough into his range where he can connect some massive shots, because he's only 59 damage above the threshold right now, which is not a lot. So that can quickly shift into the negative for him if he doesn't start acting fast.
And if we kind of take upon the sample size of what we had in game number 1, where Storm Surge was easily about 500 damage to where you had to get above to the threshold, it is going to be needing big damage to be able to come out on top. As you can already see, players are getting out here and getting active. Zeldris now going to take a couple little sneak shots there as he moves up on top of the balloons, and going from balloon to balloon to balloon here is going to be massive, especially for this rotate to where you can easily get ahead of everybody else that's kind of just out there scrambling,
but also mindfully. Yeah, like despite the initial look at what these players are doing and the way that they're moving, while they need to start moving and they need to start making plays, they're also doing it in a very calculated way. A lot of these players, and probably the players we'll see towards the top of the leaderboard at the end of the day, are the ones that are fully defending themselves on every rotation, on every twist and turn that they see. They continue to find themselves a really nice slot. Despite the innate movement that we've seen from them thus far, there's still so much that they can offer going forward. And that's what we see from Exile, actually using the Chrome Splashes yet again there to rotate. And it looks like a Void Henry is opting not to use the additional Chrome Splashes that he has there to rotate. Now, though, a Void Henry looking not necessarily in the healthy spot. This is one thing I definitely got to mention here, is he has heals, but he doesn't have a ton of HP. So the more time he spends in that storm, the less off he's going to be when it comes to the final parts of the mid game and the late game. But no, we actually just saw it there in the elimination feed. Our champion from the last PlayStation Cup has gone down yet again earlier than he anticipated. While last game it was 20th place, this time around it was in the 70s. So a second game now, he is down and out.
An unfortunate fault as Pisovsky. Hey, it's all good, you know. I believe I mentioned a little bit more of a motivational piece there in the beginning of the match. Maybe that was more towards Pisovsky, you know. Hey, go pawn. It's all good. Make the comeback, but now it's all down to these players here in this game to can rise up towards the top of the leaderboards even more. And here for Grotto, struggling for the Storm Surge, looking for the damage as much as possibly can get here. Has the launch pads in the inventory, and it may be time to go out here. All right, you need to frag out here. You cannot sit back just waiting for the AR spray.
You definitely can't. You can't afford to wait too long here to connect these shots. Unfortunately, it looks like Grotto doesn't have much of a choice. He continues to wait back in hopes that somebody is going to expose himself. But if he doesn't act fast, he's out.
Out Grotto goes, unfortunately, here on the edges of the zone, as Fox J is going to be one of the players that is able to capitalize upon the rotate. So this is where we see the combination between players that are able to get out and able to maneuver, and kind of the players that unfortunately will fall back as Evasive now goes down there in the back end. The Storm will be the ultimate punisher. And hey, Panda, maybe could you imagine we get another tornado coming into play? I see it off in the distance.
Oh no. Okay, so I love the addition of the tornadoes in Fortnite. It adds an element to the map that is ever surprising. But man, could you imagine back-to-back tornado zones? That would be tough for these players.
It would indeed be very tough, and you could already see Pilla's just kind of struggling to get above the bridge and hopefully able to get that damage onto the back of being able to capitalize upon the top, as the mountainous kind of ability around the Herald Sanctum right now is truly being a hindrance, especially for Yahoo. Yahoo utilizing that chromified form, but now getting closer into the battle, closer into these players, knowing that, hey, if I need Storm Surge, I have a little bit of a source to be able to get upon to.
Yeah, take advantage of every resource you can find, because they're not always going to be willing to present themselves, especially in a game of a stacked lobby like this, as Yahoo has now gone down with what is probably the most solid loadout I've seen in amongst these players today. Legendary Prime Shotgun, epic variant of the Evo Chrome Burst assault rifle. So those are power weapons in themselves, and unfortunately not being able to make it into the end game with that is going to be a hit.
And it's such a significant here because we see that zone on the bottom right of your screen here, folks, where we see again almost the entire lobby upon here to the north end of this zone right now. And for NDZ, it is looking like, all right, where am I going here? Because if I go front and center, I'm getting beamed. If I go to the right, I'm getting beamed. If I go to my left, I'm getting held. So what exactly is the play here for NDZ?
Yeah, that's the question here. And speaking of NDZ, he's one of our top 10 on the leaderboard as of right now, but there's some notable names from the top 10 that are already out. You have MDS Leo, who's out of this, going down in 73rd place in this game. You have Tenny, who is a staple player going into this, one that we were set to watch pretty closely, going down in 82nd place, who was in the top 10, but may not be in the top 10 following this. And the last player that's gone down already in the top 10 is Adam FNBR, going down in 88th place. So anything goes here. This is the second game. So with already some notable names in the top 10 going down early, if you find yourself outside the top 10, now's your time to strike.
The time to shine, and that's where, like we mentioned earlier, hey, this is the greatness of what Fortnite competitive gameplay is. Anybody can make a rise, a time to shine at any point of the competition, especially here early. This is a tone setter for these players that want to make a differential here and make a stamp on that leaderboard. So getting in the right position, getting in the right side of the zone is going to be massive. Well, willing that a tornado doesn't get in the way.
Oh boy, Lash. You don't say anymore. We're not cast or cursed in this lobby. They don't need to deal with another tornado here, but for Squeeze, they just need to stay alive, because 25 points on the board, that's already into the top 5 as of right now, or as it was going into this game. Especially with some notable top 10 players going out, Squeeze is set up and primed, ready to go to make their way into the top 10 for the first time today.
Such a tough zone too. Hopefully able to come out for these players that want that zone of aura of placement, but man, you look at all the chaos that is just around that edge of the zone. That's just hopefully looking for the play. You can already see those shots kind of raining in between fire, trying to find any kind of peak that they could capitalize upon too. And if anybody sets down a launch pad, it is going to mean even more chaos. So the players I think that are going to capitalize the most are the ones that are holding those chrome splashes.
Yeah, I agree. I think the chrome splashes are just the key, especially in the zones we're getting ready to see. The chrome splashes ability to hide you, keep you a little bit more protective, and have that advanced movement speed is just too much value to just throw to the wayside, to leave behind. So that's why we see players like Resin Red here using chrome splashes. And with 6 more in the inventory, they should be comfortable rotating the next few zones.
A comfortable rotate, able to get him easily to the front side of the zone. However, players are now starting to catch up with all high in the sky rotations. Red is able to get very safe into the zone here with 3 elims on the board. It's looking very, very tremendous off of a great start here early in this game as everybody is now getting in. And notice how easily he can chromify those walls, which adds 150 total HP and not only automatically heals it as well. So a great position here for Red. And if he needs to be able to get out of that box, you can blobify or chromify, excuse me, and then be able to continue it on.
Chrome and move. That's the name of the game here for these players in these first few moving zones, because realistically, that's all they have. The launch pads in the inventory may work for some, but realistically, launching in the air while tons of players have built themselves a base like FN now has right here, they're going to take advantage of that. You're up in the air, and you best believe F now is going to connect some shots with you, and you already see it now. Looking directly down, does find a player there, barely exposed themselves. It's actually Arctic Launcher, who is just on the back foot here from another player, now finds himself the focus of F now, but realizing quickly, you know what, maybe that fight is a little too much. It's not worth my time. I need to go back to my base and now look for these players in the sky, and exactly as I said, connect some major tags here with some of these launchpad users.
Some huge tags and big elims coming out. Cade right down there below, picking up another elim there on the board. So now the big dogs in this leaderboard are ready to capitalize, and even some of the little bit farther down after game number 1 are looking to make a roaring bark to go up towards the top as Chrome making takes off of the launch pad. Up into the sky he goes, and with those 2 sets of choke splashes, I know he's got what it takes to go up for height.
Yeah, you see he goes for it, but immediately has to drop on the back foot as another player has taken high ground. Actually, 2 players going for that fight other than him. So, and it's actually going to be NDZ who walks away on top of the high ground. This is another player, like we talked about before. He's one of the top PlayStation Cup players in the history of the Cup, and he continues to show exactly why that is. Now, though, connects some big shots. The Chrome Splashes come out, and he's going to drop down. Despite using a ton of material, he quickly realizes there's not much left there for him. Less than 20 builds remain. That's not enough to even get back to high ground, but he says, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to box this player, and I'm going to take every resource that he has.
Oh my, the piece is clean for NDZ, is now able to take upon a little bit more, but needed that refresh to be able to maintain the high ground layer. So now it's open to anybody left to go as HNS takes over high ground, has it upon everybody else, but does they have the materials here? 26, 25, continuously dwindling here for HNS. And now looking for anywhere to connect, but I don't think he's going to be able to maintain it.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Only 14 builds in the inventory is not enough to work with to maintain high ground at this point in the game. Now, for players like NDZ, they're out of materials. There's 0. So your only option is to use the chug splashes and chrome splashes that you have to move around and stay alive and try to find a refresh. And that's what we see him trying to do there. Does potentially connect a few shots, but now the movement is the name of the game because the storm is pushing quickly. So if you find yourself alive in these next few moments, it's all about just staying alive and just trying to get to that next point in the zone.
Tech now going to be able to stay up here and rain down the fire anywhere they could possibly look upon to as Reizoot goes down. Now, with the zone pulling slightly back, but into the pacing where you cannot reconnect those builds. It's going to be a massive opposition of whether or not anybody takes a peek up there, because with all of the wooden builds left to go, it looks like an open space for anybody to capitalize on too. But Red has taken over this middle ground layer here.
I gotta say this now here, Lash. If Red can win this game with already 5 eliminations on the board, this could be the game changer. This could be the leaderboard shaker. This could be the absolute moment for him to define the rest of these games. It's just a matter of how he plays this out. Now, though, Red building up the courage to move out of the box as players like Ronetti are just maintaining the high ground.
Maintaining it as much as possible. You notice their new name there up on height. Ronley looking for the beams and that Evo Chrome burst. coming in beautifully, shredding the bills absolutely like nobody's business, taking down any wood fire. Almost nobody is going to have any hard materials left in the brick and metal categories here. So for Riley, knowing that he can rain down the beams and possibly pick up a refresh will be massive.
It definitely will, but so many incredibly talented players already down and out here, but one of those talented players in NDZ still up, still alive, and easily climbing into the top spot if he could just survive.
Oh no. Oh no. Down he goes. The zone takes them out. And now, with little to low competition still left below, Ronaldy has once again the biggest advantage over everybody. Top 4 now into the mix. And Ronaldy now knowing he has to get in, looking for those shots to continue to go upon here. Ronaldy continues to look around. The Chili Chug Splash is now popped. So looking for the possibility of attack sprint play, possibly moving faster and faster than anybody else, but takes over a positional high ground layer.
He's taking it over and maintaining it as his own. We talked about it literally just moments ago, how the Evo Chrome Burst Assault Rifle is the rifle to have there on the high ground, and it is all over as he walks away, not only with 4 eliminations, but that beautiful, that sweet victory royale, and that's another 38-point game here for our Game 2 champion.
Oh, so sweet. 38 points seems to be the jackpot for these players right now that they are aiming sky high for. And like we mentioned, in that middle game area, we have a bunch of players that were already at the top fall early. So that leaderboard is going to be shifting.
It's wide open for the taking here for some of these players. And obviously, in just a few moments, we'll know who is actually at the top now. But it's tough to say because you have NDZ, who was already in the top 5 of the leaderboard going into game number 2. Now having another great game could push him into the top spot. But with players like we saw there in the last few moments, they also have a really solid chance there to climb into the top 5, if not the top 3. So really interested to see how this leaderboard is going to continue to shift. But this is only game 2. If this is any consolation, any kind of hint as to what we're getting ready to see for the next 4 games, Lash, we're in for an incredible ride.
We are in for a beautiful treat up ahead. And like you mentioned, only 2 games in the works right now. And now this is where, hey, that constant shifting kind of comes into mind. Like, all right, we've seen big skies to the low ends of from leaderboard to bottom. Hey, I don't know. After 2 games, we could definitely see that. But as we check in a look at the standings, Panda, what we got here?
Yeah, well, it looks like we have Voslo up on top. Wait, this is huge, right? So obviously the eliminations, not necessarily as high as some of the other players, but the placement points are coming through. 46 points to take that top spot. That is a massive change here, not only in the leaderboard, but for these players. Actually, you know what? I actually believe that NDZ is above him. If I'm not mistaken, NDZ had 51 points. So that might be a little shift in the standings we don't quite see yet, but those will continue to update as we go through the remainder of these games here, Lash.
And as we kind of scroll down that leaderboard, like you mentioned, NDZ, they're 7th, but definitely could be there at the top spot of the leaderboards here. And we see a lot of consistent names that we saw already in game number 1, kind of remaking that appearance and looking to make that consistency a main part, right? Teeny there in 13th place. We see Connor there in 11th. And hey, I'm looking forward to them to be able to make some big moves, but kind of sliding down there to 17 and 18. We see Byla, Fox J, and even D Dodger there in 20th. Can they make a move here in game, or leading into game number 3?
That's the question. Look, if I know Byla does not settle for anything less than greatness. And that's what he's going to be going for here in these finals. Despite him being an NA East player playing on the Europe region and coming over, despite the high ping, despite the disadvantages, Byla is here in the top 20, which just honestly, it just speaks to the caliber of player that he is, whether he's on console, he's on PC, whether it's FNCS or it's the Fortnite PlayStation Cup. Despite all the trials and tribulations of the people that he's having to go up against, he continues to find success. But I have a question for you. Does Byla end up in the top 10, Lash?
after this game or over or in the
overall?
Overall? Oh yeah, Viola, like, I mean, you literally just said it there. He's got the dog in him. He's got the placements. He's got it all ready to go. I mean, this is a grassroots player in the console scene that we're talking about here. My man's got the placements early in Chapter 2. My man's got the placements leading into now. He's got an FNCS championship under his belt. Yeah, Viola's got it.
You know, I'm gonna go the different direction. I think with some of these disadvantages and some of the things at play, he's going to find himself right out of the top 10. And if he does make it into the top 10, it's going to happen in the last 2 games. So watch closely here, folks, for game 5 and 6. Those will be the moments where Viola strikes. But for some of these other players, you're going to see it's actually, wait, I think this is updated. I think Viola is actually here in 25th. So now we have the fully updated list here, and there it is. NDZ up at the top, 51 points. A bit of a change there from what we were just talking about, but Viola slipping out of the top 20. So while we were just hyping him up here, Lash, it looks like he actually is not quite hitting those standards that we just portrayed.
He's got it in him. All right, you know, you can't count him out just after a rough first 2 games. It's all good there. You know, chilling over there in the 25th. But as we kind of break down this refresh standings after game number 2, I do want to point out Now. He really put up a great performance there in those final moments, to where picking off a couple players in the back end, able to then take advantage of foul plays from other players. So that way, hey, you can be able to come out on top, and that fragging ability, I like what I see.
I like what I see, but you already know it is time for game 3. And game 3 is going to be a hot one. As you see, Tilted Towers, 4 players, 5 players in the vicinity. Technically, if you consider that other player there just north, closer to the lake. But looking at the spread, I'm actually curious. You see, these players are pretty evenly spread for solos. Typically, more often than not, we actually see quite a bit of congestion when it comes to some of these POIs. And so far, Tilted Towers is probably the most contested.
I mean, it makes sense. You see the entire, I mean, what once used to be the Rave Cave blimp over there, you saw it in Chapter 3, Season 2. Now we're seeing it exactly again. History, once again, repeating itself. The contention is not stopping. I mean, the name that Tilted Towers carries, yeah, it just doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop, but for these players, they need to figure out, or they need to actually take a moment and stop, figure out exactly what they need to do in these next few moments, and continue to progress. Because time and time again, we see these fights, we see these engagements off spawn that result in one player unfortunately going down, and that ends up slowing both players in their pursuit for greatness when it comes to this leaderboard, when it comes to this competition. So you really have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Sometimes it is, especially if you get in those fights quickly, but more often than not, these fights become drawn out and they become excessive, which is not what anybody on the board wants.
Not at all what you want, indeed. Is Luca, unfortunately, going to end up going down there on your screen. You even see Henry out there in the distance, a player that we saw a good amount leading into the final moments of game number 2. So this being the off-spawn kind of area here at the wharf, I like the positioning, right? But since the zone pulls once again down, these zones have not been very kind to this area. So anybody that does well up the spot, they're like, yo, we're chilling.
They're chilling, but it's more than chilling that's going to take to be in the top 10 of the leaderboard. It's Yo False, ends up going down there yet again. This is the second time we've tuned in with them, and unfortunately, maybe we're a bit of a caster curse as far as that one individual player goes, because they continue to go down every time we tune in. But now it's Arctic's Launcher, another player we tuned in, watching his demise just last game, but he's looking to turn this around. Great loadout to start the game, but no, the chrome splashes are coming out. This player looks to be coming in potentially, but unfortunately for him, he's actually put that chrome effect onto Arctis as well. So using that, he could end up splashing, just going into Chrome 4 and just disengaging. Now with that additional movement speed, it's going to be much more difficult to connect with him.
Now this could go one or two ways. It could go a big engagement route where one player you can already see is kind of making a move here. Or it could go that disengage route that you kind of mentioned, as it's already flipping the scale. They want this aggression. They want this damage. They want this possible Elim to come out here. And Arctis is really playing this very, very kind of patiently, waiting for anybody to make a move. And he's got the Chrome now off, so has to rely on regular rotation, and left is not gonna let it go.
No, they are not. But I mean, look, that's kind of the story of all these EU players, with how aggressive they are and how great they are at fighting. I mean, if we were in them same shoes there, Lash, wouldn't we do the same?
True. You know, yeah, we've been in those 1v1 situations before. I mean, I may be in that left kind of position where I'm just creeping around. You know, I got my shotgun in hand. I'm ready to take the shot, and then, you know, Panda out there just running, you know?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just a matter of getting moving and getting going. So for some of these players, they need to start moving. They need to start going. And Slate's right here on his front foot, looking to connect some big shots, having a bit of a slow time here to start this fight. However, this is a big game for him, a big game potential for him, as Slates is not on the top of the leaderboard as of right now. We're looking to make some changes here with this one player just on the other side here. Could be his first potential aggressive victim going into game number 3.
And 2 builds, though, on the back foot, on the aggressive point, though. At the same time, it's a kind of consistency bound. It's like mixing 2 odd colors that create an interesting color based off of what you already see. You see one thing that could go into the sway of good. You could also see one thing that could be into the falter of treacherous path here. And for Sive, it's a rough spot to be able to go in here. Slays is really maximizing the ability, but the player comes up. Slays is able to force him out of the box and brings home the Elim as Sive goes down.
That is huge, and that's the kind of shift in momentum that he desperately needed to stay alive and stay up in this game. So huge play there from them, but huge plays are still going on all around the map as Loran, another player struggling to break into the top 20. And ultimately, this is a test. This is the test of whether or not Loran Daz is going to be able to walk away as a victor here in this competition, and it all starts here in game number 3 for him.
The beginning grounds for these players right now. Loran, hey, 1 point is not at all a stature of what could possibly happen here in the next 4 games, including this one right here in game number 3, as this is tendency-wise the most important part of the tournament. This is the tide shift. If you're down on the leaderboard, you got to be willing to make those big risk moves. You can't make the big reward if you aren't willing to take the risks here. And hopefully able to come out towards that top end, rack in that placement, and make it far into the game. And hey, that vault right there is definitely coming in massively.
You know, the addition of the vaults in recent seasons has been, in my opinion, one of the most solid changes. I think creating a little bit less RNG in a competitive meta like this with these vaults has been huge. It provides the players that land around them and prioritize them the ability to walk away feeling much more comfortable in the mid and late game, which unfortunately for the other players that don't have those vaults, now they have to rely a little bit more on RNG. But with the value there, that's what those value to risk ratios come into play here in any competitive game, is when, hey, I know that there's good loot at this location. Do I risk being contested by other people, having to deal with other people? Do I risk even being able to find a key to open the vault, right? And most of the time, the answer is, yeah, I'll risk it.
Hey, you know, you put in the risk. You got to be able to get the reward here. And for D Dodger, hey, taking the risk for that left-hand peek was not one that you could necessarily reap the great rewards off of, as getting punished with that big prime shot, as D Dodger waiting with his own prime shot to kind of just wait upon. Here is, it's all of a sudden become kind of a stalemate here for D Dodger, just looking to dodge around for that next shot and hopefully be able to connect, as it would be massive for the positioning.
It could be. This is a really nice spot there to catch any of the players coming in off guard. However, you look right above him and its eye pumps you. So The last thing I want to do is run into his shotgun shot. So I'm going to say that it's probably better for D-Dodger just to use the wall to try to connect any shots. But no, it's actually D-Dodger looking through the cone to gather any intel on his, not only his opponent above, but these other opponents that are rotating around, because so much is going on in this vicinity. And now he needs to understand not only what is happening, but how he's going to move, because he cannot spend too much more time here.
You can already see that based off of the rotating players as well. They're like, yo, we are chroming and we are getting out of here. You can withstand your fight. You can take it upon, but we are not going to let that dip off of our rotation whatsoever. As D-Dodger there, as you can notice here, folks, he's looking for the shots that he can possibly push these players farther into the zone here, so that way he can have a free rotation pattern to be able to go. So you already saw, I pumps you. He's out of here. He's going for anything that is possible here, as Zeldris is now looking for those shots. The piece, the sneak attack here, as Zeldris is now working in for the battle to hack onto the top of the wall, gets a couple piece controls down, and with 109 builds, definitely has a great flow to continue to pawn in the Mongrel Classic and the pickaxe play. Zeldris, you are insane. What a play there to get the Mongrel Classic down and the pickaxe play. Zeldris, what in the world did you just do?
Hey, he did that man a little dirty. I'm not gonna lie to you. That is honestly, that's kind of an ideal play. I'm kind of pumped to see that. Not gonna cap. But now we switch the focus over to Cozy. You see Cozy on the back foot there. Does have quite a bit of chug splashes there to heal up, but for lay piece on 60 FPS, he's just kind of playing this out as much as he can, trying to hold on here, waiting for his opponent to slip up. Whenever that does happen, it's all up to lay piece to get that control on him.
Hey, he's just chilling in the box, build, as iPiece is just looking to maybe hit that same piece that was once done. Man, I just, still steaming off of that piece. I don't know. That was just flat out incredible. Hopefully we get to see that a little bit later, but as we can already witness right now, we saw that just a little bit more evolvement of that Evochrome rifle, is getting that rarity up to rare, as it works well in his favor. So goes from now a 2 burst to a triple burst.
It does, man. But we got to talk about what's happening here in this game. This is an extremely aggressive start here for game number 3. And I think this has to do with a lot of players realizing their time is numbered. The moments that they have left in this competition, it continually dwindles down with every game. So they have to be a little bit more active, have to be putting up way more points than they already are, which, a little update for you, has caused one of our top players to go down. It's actually our top first place spot, and NDZ is out of this game. One of the first players to get eliminated here, meaning that top spot is now up for grabs. And with Voslo only being about 5 points behind, this is a pretty easy grab for the first spot.
And that's the battle that every single one of these players are still fighting for. I mean, hey, even our guy Byla may be down there in the top 25, but definitely has it in him to be able to rise even more. He's definitely got the loadout to do so. Max materials, everything under the sun, basically. You got the launch pads and everything in between. However, like you mentioned in that leaderboards, I do definitely see a lot of shifts continue to happen up in the near future.
I definitely agree. I definitely see some shifts here as far as the leaderboard goes, because realistically, it's not a safe bet for anybody. Everybody on this leaderboard is so close that it doesn't take much for one to overtake another spot. So it'll be interesting to see at the end of game 3 who's really the top spot, who's the leader of the pack, so to speak, when it comes to this competition in particular, because it's ever changing. It's so difficult to predict what is going to happen next, and that's the type of competition that I love to watch. So thank you, PlayStation, for hooking it up.
PlayStation coming in clutch with the tournaments, and we get to see here the top performing EU solo players here in the region showing off their skills. And solos is known as that game mode that shines the most up and coming players up in the scene. And hey, this is a great kind of momentum shift. Yo, if you need to find teammates for up and coming tournament, hey, this is the place to show off your true skills.
Now's your chance. Show them what you got. Listen, I'll be honest, right? For far too long, the stigma has been that players on console are not as successful as players on PC, and that's just far from the truth. The PlayStation 5 provides 120 FPS, an incredible gaming experience for these Fortnite players. So to be honest, I don't see how they don't find success, right? Like, that's why we see players like Byla. Not only was he an FNCS contender before he was on PC, he did it from PlayStation.
Man is an absolute beast. And hey, I've been saying this for the past few months, you know. Hey, there's a lot of players out there in the console scene, especially here on the PS5, where they are like, hey, you're rocking 120 FPS on incredible graphics, and you're making incredible plays. Impressive every single time. And you gotta put a little bit of respect on their name, as hey, they're here to dominate. They're here and ready to absolutely take over.
Looking to take over is Zeldris, one of the players that we've tuned in quite a bit with here throughout this competition. 32 points on the board is no easy task, and that's a really solid place to be. It's actually just inside the top 10 as of now, but obviously, you know, you and I know both that can change. But for Zeldris, that's the hunt. That's the look. That's the goal. Is Zeldris needs to continue to build this story arc of, hey, I'm a top 10 player. I'm going to get the eliminations to prove it. I'm going to get in the end game to prove it. And I'm going to get every point that I can from now until the end of this competition to show that I deserve to be in the top 10.
And Panda, in the beginning of this game, 24 points was the total top goal for that top 20 as well. So wow. Players like Alex, they have that big chance. They're not too far away. You get up into that placement mark of very close into the top 10, and you can easily make a big shift, especially with tacking on more elims, which is something we haven't necessarily seen yet much today. We've seen 2 victory royales already, both having only 4 elims to the board. So maybe this is the game where teams start fragging out.
You know what? Listen, it's better late than never. That's what I always say. If you're gonna turn it on, now's the time to do it, because we're almost to the halfway mark of the competition, meaning that after this, it's 3 more games. It's realistically not too much time left to really make a staple play for the top of the leaderboard. So game 3 is very important. This is the one that will define a little bit of a path moving forward. Even though the leaderboard is close now, if you're not in the top 20, not in the top 30 going into these final half, it's going to be tough for you to break through.
It is indeed going to be a little bit tough, but anything can happen here. The game is better for Fortnite. I'm not going to let it down, you know. Even in our last game where players down there in the leaderboards, they still have a chance to at least bump up that prize pool, because it does shift in between those 80s, those 60 marks, those 40s, and those especially top 10. That's where you can really make that little extra bank here. And for a player of eyepiece, 47 points on the leaderboard is very close to that first place slot.
Very close indeed, and I'm curious how this is going to play out there for him. And the one thing I haven't seen from Lit Piece is some piece control. So I would like that to change. I see Akira just on this wall here. I'm not saying I want to see Akira go down early, but if there's anybody that you could piece control real quick there, Lit Piece, that's the person to do it.
Lit Piece is you know, shifting up that piece. Maybe it's got a little bit more stamina behind it. But Zeldris, he's like, nah, I don't need any stamina. I got all the juice I need right now to continue to go on 4 elims and trekking even more here. But you notice the positioning of the zone. You're like, wait, Lash, this is a water zone. That's right. You can already see there at the bottom right half of your screen. He's in a very select group of players that is kind of shying down below of everybody above, as you see on that pan shot.
It is. It really is. But look, realistically, I'm just so pumped to see Zeldris still in this. This was the comeback game that he absolutely needed, and he's going to achieve just that. But for players like Cade, who have found themselves falling behind, I'm interested to see how they finish this out. Cade has had 2 exceptional games to start the day. 48th place with 2 eliminations, which placement wise is not great, but the eliminations kind of helped carry that. And then second game was 3rd place with 6 elims. So with 40 players still remaining, This is still a good start, but you need to keep it going. You need to keep it moving because there's not a lot of placement as of right now. That placement will start to become a huge factor here, though, in just a few moments.
As you can see, the silence, basically the eye of the storm before the chaos unleashes upon the entire lobby. We saw there just for a split second, everybody once again is on the edge. We see these zones coming in maximum pulls. And if you were not anywhere near close to the zone originally, you are going to be out here on the edge, struggling to find a possible launch pad, to find a possible edge of rotation here. And Mooner is looking to make that happen even quicker.
The pace in which Moon is picking up is exciting because Moon is one of those players who is outside that threshold of the top 20, meaning that they want to showcase their talents. They want to showcase their skills. The only way they can do that, though, is getting involved, and Moon is getting involved.
Getting involved, hopping box to box, shot to shot, looking to possibly connect here with 86 builds. It's looking a tad rough here, especially in fifth zone. And with limited utility, with only the Chully Chug splashes, and then only your weapons, Mooner is going to need a refresh sooner rather than later. And that's going to be a story for a lot of these players right now. We mentioned the zone pulling all the way maximum here down south. And now, where everybody's kind of dropping down a little bit more on the edge of the zone, this is where, as the rotations continue to come into play, they have to be extra careful.
Extra careful indeed. So it really comes down to the make or break moments of a game. And I think starting in zone 6, that's where your make or break moments really lie. I think this is the moment where the pressure is on, and these players who are extremely talented, all of these players obviously that made it here are extremely talented, but the ones that shine through here, this is the moments that they do it. They shine through in these first few moving zones, and realistically, that's where most of the points become available, because while you can get some eliminations there in the early game and even in the mid game, the placement elimination value is massive in the end game because it's easier to pick up more eliminations. You can catch more players off guard in these high pressure situations, and you're going to get placement points if you find yourself here in 6th, 7th, and 8th zone.
It is going to be massive to rack in as much as you possibly can. Destru, though, throwing down that Chrome Splash and even picking a couple more up as the rotates continue to go along. And this seems to be a much more compressed zone than we've seen here in the past 2 games. Not too many people are going up for that high ground layer, and the ones that are able to capitalize more and more as Bila picks up his 6th elimination of the game. So Bila is looking to make something happen here. And as the 7th zone now reveals itself and gets it going, this is where Bila could easily come out on top.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there, and I think Bila heard us. I think Bila heard us talking in the pre-show. He was like, no way Lash and Panda are going to tell me that I'm not going to be in the top 10, that I'm not going to be in the top 5. So now he's turning it up, and he's doing it in dramatic fashion with 6 eliminations here already. And it does look like this is going to be a struggle point here, though, for these teams. You see them now having to go through a bit of a escalated elevation point to just try and survive. That's tough. And these zones are only going to get tougher here because if you know anything about the Cloudy Condo, the Chonkers Speedway area, there are mountains left, right, and center. So not too many places can these players go where they aren't going to find some elevation challenges. And Bila identifies that and immediately gets up to the high ground.
Canyons wide, high in the sky as Tytek is looking once again for revenge of what he once had in game number 2 as he continues to look down, not wanting to go down here and seeing the similar pattern of what happened last game. It's a new point. It's a new story ready to happen, but in another player wants that high ground, and now Tytek is left to drop down here. Only 30 builds, knows that he cannot hold it, and would you look who it is here, Panda? It's Pisovsky.
Oh, how I've missed him so, man. Game 1 and 2 have been a challenge for him, but game 3 is the turn-on point. This is the moment that he has turned it all around here, and he's doing just that. Big plays there from the high ground, looking to connect some huge shots up above. But Bila here on the low ground, forced down there from the elevated position that he had, but that's not going to slow Bila down. We know how good he is in the low and mid ground to get eliminations, and there's another one. Tiger Plays goes down as Bila just continues to clean it up.
Bila's too clean, but Pisovsky won these elims. The drop down jump comes in, but Postavsky knows that he's got the piece, he's got the plays to continue to retain the HP. But Postavsky now has to dip back down with only 44 HP left remaining. Now has to move closer and closer to those top players like Byla here on this layer. And with 0 materials left, dwindling down, has the launch pad right below, knows he has to get in the box, and he unfortunately goes down here as now 1050 capitalizes with the battle for height continues.
The battle for height continues as Byla is now the victor of the high ground. And oh my gosh, 8 eliminations. What are these high elim players doing? You see this Pixovsky, he survives, he gets 8 elims. Byla still alive here in these final moments, 9 elims. And it looks like Byla is not going to stop anytime soon. He has every advantage in the book here, Lash. He could easily take this win with only a few players remaining. It's just how he strikes this from height. But with players like 1050, TI still in the game, he could make something happen, and a nice elimination there onto Alex. But unfortunately for Byla, he was not able to capitalize on that in those moments, and 38 builds remaining. That should be enough to hold height.
Byla's looking clean. However, the opposing player of 1050 goes up. A big shot comes through for Byla. He continues to mantle his way up, knowing that he's got the builds, he's got the plays, and the piece comes through. The damage was not enough for 1050, and Byla racking up 10 elims, going from 25th. Now he is rising.
Our previous FNCS champion from NA East coming in clutch here in the Fortnite PlayStation Cup on Europe's region. I mean, wow. What a game. And look, this is the comeback game that we needed from a lot of these players, especially some of the top tier players like the Byla, like the Pixovsky, who unfortunately found themselves falling behind on the leaderboard. Now, that's not the story for them. The story is how many eliminations can they put up before they go down. And for Byla, I believe that was 10?
Yeah. 10 elims. Incredible. Incredible from Byla. I mean, can we really expect anything less? I mean,
no.
He's literally from once doing alongside Peterbot to now, like, he's just cruising everywhere he goes. He's like, all right, you know, no matter the game mode, no matter what cup it may be, no matter what tournament it may be, no matter what platform it may be, he's rocking out on that PlayStation 5. He's rocking out on any other system, and this man is insane.
Absolutely insane. And I'm not surprised because, look, you said it. You challenged me. I was like, man, I don't know if I see Byla getting into the top 10. And if I do see him doing it, it'll be in game 5 and 6. Literally, he heard us. He had to have heard us. And he was like, okay, I see you. I'm starting the engine. I'm going to rev this thing up, and I'm hitting the accelerator as hard as I can because that was not only an incredible game, but it was a dominant game. Not 10 eliminations to finish it off from the high ground, held the high ground for the final moments, and took it at the appropriate time, which has been something we haven't seen yet thus far. So this is literally every ingredient you needed to make a winning sandwich was just displayed right there.
Absolutely. You got the protein, you got the vegetables, and you got the beautiful, perfect sandwich ready for Victor Royales, elims, and all around. And you just got the perfect meal. As hey, I'm gonna give a little bit of a shout out here for TyTech. I need to see a big uptick here. You got to hold that high ground here leading into the next 3 games.
You definitely do. I think, look, so many players are going to watch this game and they're going to be like, okay, now I need to do this. I need to get the high ground because look at how well that did for Byla because he's taking the top spot here on the leaderboard with 69 points. But Cade close behind there with 55.
55 points there for Caden. You mentioned him a lot there in that mid-game kind of moment. This is a player that will not stop, and he's a top performing, consistent player. So Byla needs to pick and keep picking it up even more, so that way you stay up there at the top. But NDZ falling a little bit there short of the top 3 here is now is right there, 51 points. And this is very close as well between everyone within that top 10, even moving down into the 11th to 20th place spot, as we can only see a 10-point differential between 8th and 20th.
You know what's wild about this? NDZ went down in 80-something place in game number 3, and to still find himself in the top 3 is impressive. That shows that he had a really solid start to the day, but he cannot slow down now. You can have one throwaway game. It happens. But unfortunately, with the competition and the level of competition, I should say, for these players that are involved, you have to keep going. You have to be consistent, and you cannot afford to have another game like that.
You can't afford to really drop off of the placement. That's where the kind of mindset comes in, because if you have one down game, then you literally cannot get too down on yourself. Otherwise, you can have that as a catapulting effect to where you're consistently dropping even more. So for all the players out there, pick up the mindset, the grind set. You got to be ready to take upon any situation, even though you may be down there in that 19th, the 14th, the 7th. Hey, you can still make that big rise as the leaderboard kind of continues to shift down to the point half.
You can. The top 20 is still up for grabs for some of these players. And let's talk about the players that have that opportunity to climb into 20th. It is the 21st to 40th players. And right there at the top in 21st is Akira. Akira finding himself consistently in the end game. I'm actually curious here. Looking at Akira's stats, game 1 unfortunately went down in 28th, which, to be clear, 28th in solos is huge. That's the final moments of the game. That's 22 minutes into the game. In game number 2, they were alive with 4 elims in 12th place. That's what really pushed Akira into the 25th spot and just outside the top 20. But unfortunately, in game 3, we saw a similar situation to game 1, where they went down in 29th with only 1 elim. So not too many points additionally added to the board, but this changes. There's a bit of a trend here for Akira. Game 1, struggle. Game 2, great. Game 3, struggle. That means game 4, potentially great. And for all these other players just outside of the top 40, game 4 is going to be a defining factor because they have to put up points here soon.
Listen, Panda, I think you need to have I think you have the opposite of the caster curse effect. I think you have the caster blessing up in here. And hey, for these players here in the 81st to 99th spot, hey, you got to hit up Panda for these blessings, man.
Hey, listen, listen, I'm not even going to charge, man. You want a little caster blessing? Just hit me up, man. I got you. I'll say it out loud and proud because look, I kind of bet against Byla before game 3 before game 3, and then he won game 3 with 10 elims. So maybe I have to bet against you a little bit, and you might just pop off.
I think that's the way to go, 100%. But here we go, folks. Game number 4, jumping into the battle buses now. This is the point where we could definitely see players start to swap up the drop spots because they know these are the kind of sort of final games. This is the second half of the tournament to where they can make the big moves.
Big moves here are up for grabs. It's just a matter of whether or not these players are willing to take it, and that's what we see here. We already see some shifts here, and I want to mention this. Obviously, we don't have necessarily player names to who's made some shifts here in the beginning of this game, but I definitely see some players veering off of other POIs. If you look just right of Tilted Towers, a player has now landed on the outskirts instead of landing directly in, showing that maybe these guys are realizing, hey, I'm contested. I'm not finding success. I need to change up the game plan.
The passivity is definitely going to be a tremendous kind of movement for these players, right? They need to have that kind of awareness, right? That goes into the same kind of fruition of the mindset, right? They have that mental awareness to be like, okay, this is not working for me, so I'm not going to continue to double down on the mistake that was already once made. So it works that way for them, but Panda, we got a little creepy action here that leads to a little sneaky elim there.
Let's go, Lugsy. That was a clean little sneak up there, and probably the smart play. This player clearly landing on the outskirts, probably wasn't anticipating anybody trying to contest him. Fortunately for Lugsy, that played into his favor, walking away with a nice little elim to start this off. But another elim we got to talk about is Grotto. Grotto has gone down quite a bit here in the first few games. With 10 points going into this, I could definitely see a shift happening. He's staying alive a little bit longer. It's just how he plays the remainder of this out. And especially for players like Ghost Civ too, who unfortunately have not had the start that they were anticipating, but they are still extremely high caliber players. I cannot stress to you all at home how much this is like the top of the top when it comes to PlayStation players in Europe.
This is the creme de la creme, as you had brought to in the pre-show, where this is the best of the best. No matter where you turn, everywhere you look, every single player is going to be fighting for that big top spot. And no matter the fights, you can already see there, Doss respecting his opponent there, saying, all right, I don't want any part of this fight anymore. We're both going to go our separate ways here. We're going to hopefully make our way towards the end game kind of pattern and then make a break, essentially.
And we'll see how this ends up playing out here. But for Big FaZe Mongrel, man, I miss saying that name. I'm going to be honest with you, Flash. I miss saying the name, but I'm glad to have somebody filling the shoes here a bit, as he's got 41 points on the board, meaning he's one of our top contenders on the day. And so far, we can kind of see why. His building technique, phenomenal. He's good at just staying above, not overextending too much. You see how he's using this natural edge to try and gauge shots, and that just like screams to me talented player. So I'm excited to see how this continues to play out for him over here for the Big FaZe Mongrel in the Rave Cave.
I think there's a reason he's got the big right in front of it, all right? The utmost confidence of the VOD reviewing brings upon a strong, dominant appearance that nobody can back away from. And hopefully it can bolster out anybody into his sights. Hey, maybe we see another Mongrel classic there from Big FaZe Mongrel.
Could you imagine? I think we have to see it now. All right, Big FaZe Mongrel, if you can hear us, you need to hit the FaZe Mongrel. We got to see it. Like, if you're going to take the name, if you're going to take over the legacy, we got to see you hit the move. The move that infamously known by the actual FaZe Mongrel to do. So I'm excited. We'll see how that continues to play out, but we got to focus now onto Pyla. FN, my man. This guy has been one of the few players that we continue to tune into, and he looks like he has so much potential in the game, but unfortunately things just happen and he ends up going down. So he's playing this a little bit smarter, a little bit slower than we've seen in some of the past plays him make. So great start here in game number 4, but he needs to continue to be careful because he's not in zone. He's gonna have to start moving here soon, and if he doesn't start putting those feet to the floor, he'll end up finding himself falling behind.
And that's where you gotta hold on to your foundational pieces. As you could already see, he was in that bit of a stalemate battle, and that could definitely be something that has kind of punished the placement line for many of these situations. Is we have Slights, who's just above or just below the glorious Rave Cave, as making hopefully big moves. Hey, maybe FaZe Mongrel's back in there looking for some peace, looking for the Mongrel Classic, but Zig is going to be one of those players that wants a piece of the action, but not for much longer. Just wanted a little bit of a taste, but he was like, nah, that's a bit bitter. I don't want any of that. But Slades wants more, and hopefully looking for that hefty meal of what could be a refresh here for Slades. Continues on to a great pathing here. Notice how he's taken upon that little bit more of a high ground era, if you will. And as there's already a couple players lurking around, Blaze has this area to himself to continue on to this battle, and he's taken over a very alpha positioning.
That he is. Listen, positioning is everything, Lash. It really boils down to what you can hold and how you hold it, man. So for Slats, he's done a very, very good job of that so far. But will he be able to continue to do it? That's the question.
The question that very well could be answered within the next minute, as Zig is very close to that slipstream right there. Do you think he makes a getaway here as the battle gets a little bit more frisky?
Hey, listen, I'm going to root in his favor. I want to see him get more aggressive. I want to see a lot of these players get more aggressive, especially the ones that are not in the top 20 as of right now, but we'll see how this goes.
The battle of the Science, as the zone is pulling. This is no longer a desert zone. From last game to now this game, the zone says, nah, we don't want this. But Yaxby is like, yeah, I want the business. I want the elims out here. Give it to me. As he takes out the opponent there and able to pick up that elim. So now hitting upon the chrome splashes and a great rotate. But you did see a couple more players there on the distance that are struggling with the same thing.
You know, I'm not surprised. That's kind of how this goes here. These players that are outside of zone, the first thing they need to think about is moving, but they tend to run into each other. And unfortunately, that usually causes some issues. But speaking of issues, man, Nox is on the back foot. 4 effective HP, but with 100 shield, can potentially hold on. It just depends on the health advantage this other player has, but he does 50 damage. Huge tags there onto Nox. He needs to play this carefully, and he needs to stay alive.
The holding on needs to realm into the factor to the builds here, as 40 consistently dwindling. Could very well take a couple sneak shots there as he gets a little bit of shield damage there to take advantage of the fight. Give himself time, breathing room to pop upon that shield potion. On the other side, Azrin's like, yo, all right, you want to tag me up a bit? I'll pop my shield cake down. I'll get my shield up. Nox, you can hit the rotate. It's all good. We're just going to cut this a clean fight, you know, even victory for both of us.
Even victory for everyone. Let's see it, though. Byla doing a good job of starting off strong here. Despite it being in Storm right now, this is kind of the first time we're tuning in with him. He has been getting eliminations, and this looks like it's another one in the books here, as Byla actually catches a player off guard, does a good job of picking up some huge tags there early. And looking at the inventory, he has no plans of going into zone anytime soon. 12 chug splashes. He's got the med mist. I mean, this is everything you could possibly need.
He is vibing. There's no other way to say it. 1050 is just out there, like, trying to fight for his life. But Byla's like, all right, you want to take this fight? I'll match you and I'll double you. I got the chug splashes, the med mist to last me for days. And that was also because of that vault. So maybe we see 1050 get a little bit of a piece of that and then get a bit of a disengage. They both come out of the zone. That would be the ultimate best kind of situation.
You know, I could vibe with that. I could live with that. But speaking of living, it's D Dodger staying in this game here. Is this the second time now we've tuned in with him getting chili chug splashes? Like, what is this guy's luck?
He's got it. He's got it in the bag. Like, definitely has the looting path. You know, you can't completely attest it to luck either. Like, these players know exactly what they're doing. They know their exact looting pattern, especially if you have one of those to where you can get as many hollow chests possible spawns that you possibly can, and then you know you got the keys to do it. Oh, why not? Take upon the best loader. But now we need to see the capitalization from D Dodger.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he continues to play this out. I think he's got some advantages there in the inventory. He hasn't quite leveled up that Evo Chrome burst, and now's the time to do it because he needs some surge tags there. Unfortunately, he is going to miss the first few shots, but with other players still looming close, he can connect some big ones that could end up turning the tide there as far as surge goes.
The surge and the damage for that Evo Chrome burst, as all you really need is 125 damage to level that thing up all the way to rare and then get 250 more. You're already at epic and you're dealing 4 shots per burst. So this is exactly what players like D Dodger are ready to do. They're ready to continue to get that damage up and get the piece. But now, hey, we got a bit of a mountainous zone here on that mini-map, Bandit.
Yeah, this is the zone that you know, look, it's better than tornadoes. Can we just agree that it's a little bit better than tornado zones? So definitely going to be a bit of a challenge here for some of these players, depending on the ones that truly don't make it up to those elevated points there on the map. But for Ryzen Red, really nice spot here. It's not quite fully on top of the mountain. However, it's in an angle where the top of the mountain can't quite connect with him. But they also have a path into the cavern where they're going to look for a quick elimination. Unfortunately, going to miss the first few tags, but now it is on. They are continuing to push forward, trying to make something happen here. But unfortunately, going to end up losing this player here because these caverns are slippery.
Slippery indeed. And unfortunately for Red here, when you're that low on materials, you really are kind of literally taking the hammer rifle to your foot right now. Like, you are unfortunately taking yourself down to a negative, essentially. You can't get the piece control on the player, neither can you get those sneaky shots onto the opposing players. So for that situation, unfortunately, it's like, all right, you just gotta let it be. However, he is up towards that high ground layer, so it could be huge leading these next few zones.
This could be huge indeed, but for RZ Destru, they're just going to gather some intel. Despite them not being in zone yet, they just have to look around and be kind of patient. However, one thing I do want to note, he is above the damage threshold now, but it does look like with the lightning showing very close by, there are some players who unfortunately are below the threshold. So they're going to be looking to connect some shots here, and some big shots indeed. Now for Outplayed, just hanging on here, holding on 6 above the threshold. That is not enough to survive this zone if he is not careful. So he's going to need to start looking for tags, and he's going to have to start looking for them pretty quickly.
And that lightning is going off there on Kumra, as already attracting the attention from the opposing player, as Outplayed needs to get aggressive here, needs to be able to find that shot. Got the chrome splashes in the inventory. You can make a move here. You cannot be too stingy with what you have in the arsenal here. For Outplayed, needs to be able to take advantage of that, especially with the amount of players around here. You have the opportunity. Now you need to take the chance to seize it.
Yeah, but will he be able to seize it? That's the question. In my opinion, you have to be aggressive here. You cannot afford to keep taking damage from Surge. Fortunately, he is going to hit one shot. That one shot is going to like put him just above the damage threshold for now, but he's going to have to be aggressive, and that's what we see here. The players are coming out. He's going to go ahead and build out just a little bit to try to connect some rather large tags here, and he does. He ends up getting almost 200 damage above the threshold. This is a massive change of pace here for him, but he's going in. He realized this player is not paying attention, and fortunately may be able to get the elimination, and he does. Not only that, now he has a launch pad already placed for him, and he can just now mosey on into the zone.
Clean, swift rotates there for Outplayed. Knew exactly what they were doing there, as a great positioning. One worldly of a refresh there, as being able to get that elim plus the launch pad plus an extra one was absolutely massive, and then being able to hit the chrome splashes as well. So the rotates definitely going to come in there, but now the water fights continue to go out. Now they're shifting onto land here, and now the masses of the monsters continue to just develop even more and more. And we're seeing this kind of edge zone cluster moving all around, and Destru is kind of on the back end of that.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, he is on the back end, but he's going to continue pressing on, pressing and staying alive here as Destru just looking to try and stay away from this other player. He realizes that he's close and he cannot afford to take the fight, but unfortunately the fight is coming to him as Destro gets tagged up quite a bit. Now has to use his slurp fish just to stay alive, and another player in Storm ends up potentially catching him off guard, but no, Destro is going to go down to Muddy Fishy, and unfortunately he's going to be out of this one. This is not the end he was anticipating, but it has also slowed down Muddy Fishy, and if they're not careful, they can end up going down as well.
Big Elim still on the uptick, and if you mentioned there at the top left of your screen there, a big player of Voslo went down in the elimination fee. So a player that had great potential throughout the first 2 games, after slipping in game number 3, game number 4 falls once again early. So unfortunately for Voslo, he's gonna need those next 2 games to hopefully capitalize upon too. And for players like NDZ, they're looking to kind of make the opposite happen. They need a big game here.
They definitely do need a big game, because I'm going to be honest, the more and more time that they spend without eliminations, without additional placement points, and having that rough last game, they're going to continue to find themselves dwindling. Despite them still being up in this game, so are 50 other players. So this is, while in a traditional team mode, this may feel like we're kind of far into the game. For solos, they do a much better job of just surviving. So it's definitely a bit of a different pace, to say the least.
They got to be willing to make the crucial decisions to stay alive here. Kumra is doing that exact thing, as just waiting to hit the chrome splash rotates, but Lauren is there waiting. And that's the story of these rotations, as it's a treacherous uptick to get up towards that bridged area and hopefully being able to make it out alive. But Lauren is not stopping. However, Kumra is able to bring the shot, bring the damage down. A great Elim now has to fight against anybody else, because the only one there in the back end.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. That aggressive play style is very easy to counter if you're just patient. And fortunately for Kumra, they were patient, and that's why they walk away still alive in this game while taking out another player in the process. But for Buko Benefita, 3 eliminations on the board, but not a ton of material. Is going to desperately need a refresh, and it looks like he already knew of a refresh here, as he ends up going in there, picking up the burst. But it looks like he is seeking some of those additional mats that could be lingering close by, but he's struggling here a bit to connect, and now he does. 500 metal. That's exactly what he needed.
That was just awareness at its finest. It's just searching around. I know there's something here. I know there's something here. It takes that little bit extra 5 seconds, and that brings such a fantastic advantage as now pushing up the fight, as Benfica is really looking for that big damage, already overhauling over 1,000 on the Storm Surge threshold, but not looking to stop anytime soon.
Not looking to slow down here is Buko. I mean, look, I'm gonna be real with you. He doesn't have a ton to work with, despite even finding that refresh. That refresh kind of saved him a bit. However, that's still not enough to truly be successful in these next few moments. So he's going to have to act fast in finding some kind of refresh on a player down low. But as we switch over to Pixovitska, or Pizovsky, as some might call him, he has continually shown that he's a second half player. And this is just another tournament where he's shown up in the second half and popping off. Obviously, last game was a huge staple one for him. Now, this game looking to make this a repeat. He's got 2 eliminations on the board, which is a little bit slower than when we tuned into him last game. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have plenty of time to make some things happen, make some waves here against some of these other players, because the action is just starting to unfold.
Just getting started here in the 5th zone, as everybody looking into their half rotate, looking to get anything that could possibly get them anywhere they want to be here in this moving rotation to zone. Everyone has kind of made it quite swiftly. Nothing has truly treacherized this rotate, at least yet. We are in this mountainous kind of area, and Pixovsky, this is where we saw him come out very successful in game number 3. Could we see it again? It's a very plausible thing, especially where you see that zone went there, Panda.
I mean, look, it truly has been the story of the champion, right? And quickly in the beginning of this competition, we saw the story hit a bit of a road bump, right? It looked like he was slowing down. It didn't seem like the same Pixovsky that we had seen in the last PlayStation Cup. Then, speed ahead now, we see him just dominating. He had 8 eliminations in his final moments of the last game. Now looking to repeat that here in this game. And he is at high elimination Andy, if I had to call anybody that, because he is very good at fighting. He knows how to finish up fights quickly, and he knows who to target at the right times, which ultimately is some of the biggest mistakes that a lot of these players will end up making, is he just knows when it's right to take the fight and when it's not. And this is a fight, though, because Buko gets a huge tag, ends up connecting some massive shots, almost getting that elimination, but it does look like this player was able to slip away.
Able to slip away just a little bit more. Buko pushing in the fight a little while longer. Knows that he needs the refresh to be able to continue to trek along the pacing here. As Vaslo now going down to the back end. So another big fall. And now the leaderboards are quite open here as the zone continues to file up. Griff, a player there that has taken over the high ground. But as we've seen so far throughout the tournament, it does not come for free.
It definitely does not, as Griff stays alive here, looking to connect with the player that tried to challenge him. Fortunately, he is going to be able to drop down here a bit, but he is starting to run out of material again. Taking high ground a little bit early, but with the 7th zone still looming, it does look like he's not willing to give it up quite yet, but he is going to need a refresh. He needs to connect some shots and some massive shots on a player close by so he can easily pick up the material that they drop.
It could be huge as we swap to Buko. Buko, a player that has made it this far already and is not looking to stop. Now, spraying on top of the wall, gets the piece control down, connects on the shot.
Wow.
So now Tiger down in the middle ground layer, and the materials are now refreshed. However, this zone is going up here, Panda.
It's going up here, folks, and this is not going to slow down as the elevations continue to change here close to the Rave Cave. This was the game that you predicted for Zone 1, but it's just happening in Game 4 instead, or Game 1 instead of Game 4. But look, it is time. The Rave Cave zone has presented itself, and for players like Buko, they identify this quick. They have the Chrome Splashes. They will be able to use it to kind of navigate the existing areas so far. And remember, when you're in that Chrome form, you have increased movement. You can phase through walls. There's so much that you can do with it. So it's really important to use those Chrome Splashes while you have them. But Griff still holding the high ground. And looking down, though, a lot of notable names absent. You don't see the Byla. It looks like I don't even see Pixovsky, which means some of these top players from the top 10 have dropped. So this is the time. Oh, but Cade, we have to talk about it. Cade is in the top 3.
In the top 3, looking to make a big move. Now creeping around anywhere that Cade can possibly move in here. He's got the damage. He's got the piece. Gets one shot down, but an unfortunate missed shot there. And would you look who it is? Fox J now looking to make a big upscale here on the leaderboards. From once was back end top 20, now has the opportunity here in the top 9 here of game number 4. Here as Fox J is making big movements. However, it comes at a cost of getting too close to height.
Too close to height, and you will get punished. And that's what we see. Santi, he's dishing out that punishment. He knows that these players are not going to try to challenge him, especially in these final moments. This is when these players are on the last of the material that they have. They don't have much to work with, so this is where they're most vulnerable. And Santic up there on the high ground realizes that, and he's taking full advantage. You see 5 eliminations on the board, but he's not done yet. That Evo Chrome burst is ruthless. It is so strong there from height. These players down low need to be careful, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to continue to try to connect some shots. Unfortunately, misses a few shots there as Pilot ends up cleaning that up, but the fight continues to ensue as him in his Chrome Flash form catches off guard Loki. Now it is a 1v1v1 to finish off game 4.
Pilla looking for the shot, has a low HP Cypher down there on low ground and picks up the Elim. Santic now has to go for the drop down. 62 HP in a dream, and Pilla has flipped the script with all materials, all sights around. Continues over to the left peak. Can Pilla find it? Continues to look around. The wide open shots is there, and Pilla clutches up with 7 Elims, gathering up to 54 points, which will mean massive up there at the top.
Huge. Absolutely huge game. And again, we continue to see how these leadership or leaderboard changes are going to continue to happen. It's because players are starting to get more aggressive. They realize the value not only in those placement points, but truly the value in eliminations as well. So I'm curious, right? This is a trend here. Every game we've tuned in with, players more and more are getting higher elimination games. Do you think this is going to continue going into the final 2?
I believe. I'm a believer in the fragging power of these players right now. I believe they got it in them. Every single game has been a constant uptick. We went from 4 to 4 to 10, now to 7. I believe it's going to continue to go up.
You know what? I believe it too. I believe it is not done anytime soon. These eliminations are going to continue to rack up, especially for players like Pixovsky, who unfortunately, while had a great game 3, fell early in game 4. This is the story that we were trying to tell. It really is this champion, someone who is a better second half player by far. Unfortunately, just not finding the footing there in the second half. Does, however, find himself in 9th place still. So he's still in contention for that top spot, but it looks like Cade was able to run away with it.
Cade coming out on top, and even going down there in that 8th kind of place positioning, it still racked up enough placement and enough eliminations to get him up there, but only by a little marker of 2 points, as Byla, I believe, fell early there in those final moments. Got him up to 74, however, and then now is where we see that gap starting to develop. As you look there, Raizu, Valso, NDZ, Fox J, who made it there in those final moments as well, already starting to rank up, and even Pixovsky falling a little bit there into 9th place. So already within this gap, it's starting to bridge between those 1st and 2nd. However, it's very close from 3rd to 20th.
It is very close. I think if we're being honest here, Lash, I think this 3rd to 20th spot is anybody's. It is going to be tough to call. However, we start to see that breakaway in the top 3, which is interesting because for Cade needs to remain consistent, which they've done a phenomenal job of. But when you have that variable of a Byla who literally can like turn on and just immediately get a 1st place with 10 elims, like who can do that? And none other than Byla, an FNCS champion. So you have to be mindful of this top 3 because I think it's going to be very, very tough to stay in it.
And it's going to be tough, especially with players like we've seen. We saw there in those moments of game number 3. We saw 1050 there at 13th place make some big moves, but then unfortunately go down in game number 4. So slipping a little bit farther back. However, we take a notice at 12th place, Akira, one of the players that you mentioned there on the brink of the top 20, now moving up there into 12.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge game from 21st to 12th. I mean, that's no easy task. And all it takes is just a little bit of consistency to climb into this top 20. And that's what we're seeing here from a lot of these players. And remember, Akira's story is Akira's venture was the first game struggled, second game better, third game struggled, fourth game better. And that fourth game was the best by far for Akira, with a 7th place, 1 elim game, climbing into 12th place. So this is what you love to see. And this is going to be a shift here for a lot of these players who have that, the bit of a trend, the predictability behind them. Some players are second half players. Some players are first half players. And some players are on and off like Akira. So I'm going to continue to watch for these trends, Lash. I'm going to continue to look for some other people that are in similar situations. But now we got to talk about the people that are outside of contention, outside of that bubble of the top 20. And Cypher SMG 101, my man, is right outside.
Made it into that second place spot there in game number 4. So, hey, maybe the alternate comeback here for Cypher SMG. That would be pretty incredible, you know, repping the Cypher brand. However, as we take a look here at players that made tremendous moves there in those games as well, we see Buko there at 22nd place there with a great placement points to Elim's Arky, 11 there. And a similar pattern goes there for Zeldris. Zeldris also one of those players that made that kind of very similar pattern, and players that seem to be slipping a little bit more teeny there, as we saw there in that 27th. And then we look here in the 40th to 60th range here, Panda.
Looking at it here, man, it's tough, especially when you see people like Griff. You see Cozy in here. You see D-Dodger, all incredible names and players that have shown some insane skill thus far, just outside. And like, it blows my mind to think that we're looking at such talented people, and even the most talented of players find themselves outside the top 40.
It is an unfortunate thing to see, but here we go, folks. Game number 5. Jumping into the battle bus we go. This is the opportunity, the chance for the players down on the leaderboards to make a skyrocketing chance up there towards the top, and for the top players to hold on to their leads.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. I really am. I'm wondering who's going to be able to kind of break away here and who's going to slip in, because Zeldris is one of those names that we continue to come back to, finding success in Rave Cave, finding success in these games, but unfortunately not finding their way into the top 20 as of right now. So this is a bit of a turning point for Zeldris. Needs to realize that, you know what, 2 opportunities remain, and that's it. And that's not a lot to work with.
Not a lot to work with, but hey, we keep coming back to the point. Anything can happen here in Fortnite, and Zeldris is looking to make that same exact statement happen. And you know, I might go against the flame here. I think he's gonna have a 5 elim plus game here.
You know what? I would like it. I believe here, but unfortunately not going to be able to believe for Trabs as Trabs goes down. It's actually the D-Dodger, one of those players that we just talked about on the leaderboard, not necessarily in the top 40, but now looking to change that with a quick elimination to start the game. And look, I'm impressed. I'm impressed, Lash. That's the exact way you need to start this, especially with already having 27 points. It just takes one big game. 30 points for a victory royale, 2 points for elimination. You combine that, you get 10 elims and the victory royale. I mean, you're challenging the likes of Byla and so on. So,
sheesh, if that happens, only 16 points of a differential over to the top 20. Oh, you best believe that's going to be a big uptick, even in to the top 10 here, as Vizsla is looking to be one of those players to maybe go against that kind of tread of where it's kind of risen on 6 points and hopefully a big comeback in. But I pumps you gets the big prime shot right to the dome, and Panda, like you had said earlier, that pumps has got the big prime.
You know, I'm not surprised, man, because that thing, if you ever reload it to the first shot, it hits, and it hits well. Speaking of hits, though, it does look like Byla's hitting some shots as well, getting another elimination there in the feed. And now we switch over to him. He's actually in trouble. It does look like another player is trying to force him into an engagement that he's just not ready to take. Now, though, it does look like he may be able to slip away. He does have Chug Splash in the inventory, but opts just for that Chrome Splash shield. That's another feature that we haven't talked about with the Chrome Splashes, is once you're in that form, you can actually heal yourself for a little bit of white health while you're actually in it. So smart play on Bilo's part to continue to do that, but these games continue to press on, and this player is not letting up quite yet.
Lets up though just a little bit more as you the Panda Caster blessing, you know, truly coming into play here for Bila. Bila definitely appreciates that. You can tell that for sure. Even dips down for that refresh here too. So able to be like, all right, I got this. This is my place where I thrive the best. And now Bila's going to be getting out of here with a great positioning. Output though a little bit out in the distance. So maybe there's a bit of fierce in that leaderboard out in the ways.
Out in the ways and out in the plays as Noah is going up against Mez here and jumping right into the box. This is huge here for him. Noah going to continue to challenge Mez. Mez very weak, and all Noah needs to do is connect one major shot and it is over, and that's what he's hunting for. He's hunting for the big time shot to end this fight quickly, but unfortunately for him, Mez is now beginning to heal up.
The heal's not coming in, so can Noah get the big pressure needed? The prime shotgun dealing that big instant first shot damage to the wall. Now, hopefully willing to compete it, get it straight to the body, get it straight to the dome, get the shot in, but no, the big shot comes back to Noah, and unfortunately gonna go down there at 11 points. However, Mez is gonna be like, all right, you know what? I got that big pump, stay away from me.
Big Pump. I mean, that should be his name. It's just Big Pump. But I mean, you and I both know over on the NA side, we have the Pump, right? The guy putting in work on the controller. So it'd be a challenge to pick up that name and pick up the mantle. But now, though, we focus on Tripix, L2R2, another controller player, another infamous controller player in the scene. And here in Europe, the controller players, they thrive. And man, do they thrive, especially in these PlayStation Cups.
They thrive sky high. D-Dodger is looking to be one of those players that can make the shots thrive as the creep attack is waiting, hiding around the door as the lights shine in above him, as if a little metaphor to the lights that are on D-Dodger right now in the metaphorical place of the leaderboard. 27 points, we mentioned it early, 16 points back. So an elim here would be massive. However, the disengage comes out, and this is something that we're noticing a lot more in these final two games. Disengages are going to be a lot more common.
You're absolutely right, and it's funny in that situation, D-Dodger was looking to not only play under the lights, but to turn the lights off for his opponents, and he's doing it in a very, very smart way. He's patient, he's methodical, he doesn't make too much noise, knowing that some of these other opponents are close by and are looking to catch you off guard, just like you're trying to catch them off guard. But now, though, we flip over to Slate 2. Every time we tune in, we see him finding some incredible success, but this time around, he's using what is left of his material just to stay alive.
And that's the thing for these kind of situations where Slidus needs to use everything in the arsenal to be able to stay alive. I mean, that is the key goal. If you go down with a lot in your inventory, that's just going to be a downer on yourself. That's going to be a downer on your gameplay of that current kind of threshold as well. You don't want to be going down with especially a launch pad inventory, knowing you could have done more. For Slates here, needs to look for those possible refreshes or even just sit back and refarm.
Yeah, refarming is definitely going to be it. I think, look, you have metal around you. You have metal close by, so use what metal you do have left in the inventory and just refarm and use this time wisely, because realistically, these players around you, they're not going to move. The zone is here, and that means they don't have to go anywhere. So players like Zeldris are just going to hang out and do the exact same. So if you're not on the back foot protecting yourself and gathering more material, you're going to fall behind.
The constant slipping pattern is always something that could affect these players. It kind of goes along with the theme of the current season of the Chrome overtaking. You know, you may be slipping and tripping on that Chrome at times, but then again, you may be thriving zooming and zooming as Marak is looking to make that happen around here, but it's a tough stance to stay against, especially here with a player of the high ground kind of effect around here at the Chrome Crossroads kind of area. But Marox is not having any of it.
No, they are not. They are not willing to let this player just slide. They're going in for the kill. And unfortunately, they're not going to be able to connect it, though. Amir Cox, though, is going to be able to escape and find another player in his sights. The aggression here shows that he is in game mode. He is in focus mode, looking to connect with any of the players that remain.
The piece looking for it to happen, but unfortunately, it's going to disengage to a leftover side as Morocco is now looking over to get into the piece. It's very possible here, as now going to have to dip back over to a position that's very possible, as Myrox now has to try and find a way to maybe dip into a position that could very well mean a disengage of the possibility here. But with only one Chrome Splash in the inventory, it's a very, very difficult thing to kind of muster up, especially here in these moments where the zone is in such a risky spot as it kind of pulls over towards this west of Loot Lake area. And for a team like, or for a player like Red right now, it's going to be an interesting decision to kind of go across. Do you take upon the balloon right above? Because as we've seen as a quick history realm up of Fortnite's history in general, if you go up into the sky, it is a big risk for your opportunity.
A big risk, but with big reward here. That's the name of the game, right? Sometimes you have to take those risks to get that reward, but it should be calculated. And Lash, you and I know, we talk all the time off camera about the calculated aggression that these players have to make, using their decisions and their shots wisely. Every small detail, every AR shot, every turn, every build is one less thing that you have going into the mid and late game. So if you're not using them wisely and using every single one to the fullest effect, you're going to find yourself falling behind, because there are players like a Byla, like a Pixovsky, who understand this, and they're going to continue to operate at such a high level to stay ahead.
And we've seen it time and time again already throughout the day, where players have such an interesting position, but then end up making it one of the greatest because they were able to use that just one build that made the biggest of difference to change up the entire pacing of the game here. And hey, even Storm Surge, which is now above in a warning throughout the entire lobby.
Yeah, the warning is here, and I'm not surprised. Surge is always a factor here in these games. We've seen it in every single game thus far, being a bit of an issue. But now 11 players still need to go down before this thing is going to turn off. So it's not going to happen anytime soon. But what you may be wondering at home is how these players even got involved in this. Well, don't worry. We got you covered. Go to compete.playstation.com for your chance to play in these same exact events. You have a unique opportunity to compete at the highest level here with these players. Think you can do it? Go to compete.playstation.com to sign up for the next PlayStation Cup. Ball's in your court, and we'd love to cast over your name in the next competition. But now back to this competition, Lash.
I'm ready for the next up-and-coming players that are ready to show their name here on the PlayStation Cup platform. As, hey, maybe we even see some of those newer players coming into advantage here in this October version of the Fortnite PlayStation Cup. As I'm looking forward to seeing it. We've already seen it for some of these players throughout the day so far, throughout the first 4 games, now leading here in game number 5, where they're able to make a big comeback, and maybe we see that even more here.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the big comeback stories, the ones that are not necessarily expected in this moment, but in the final 2 games are the exciting ones to watch. So we're going to keep a close eye as these players continue to play this out. But I just wanted to tune in with the top 10. And as of right now, in the top 10, going into this game at least, none of them have gone down. But we do, however, have Akira, that player that I was talking about the last 2 games, unfortunately is down and out here, meaning that their 12th place that they had going into game number 5 is most likely gone.
And it goes to the same exact pattern you had kind of mentioned there, where it's a down game, an up game, down game, an up game, and now once again a down game. So hopefully Akira can make that big move back up to the top. But Roman, right here on your screen, is looking to make the same exact move against this opposing player, but the piece comes through on the other side, and that's going to be FN Nox, a player, or excuse me, it's going to be Jacob picking up that elim there as a clean swipe, but only 8 points on the board. So this, once again, could be another huge swing in form of Jacob.
And that's what I want to see. I want to see Jacob continue to put these insane points up. But what I also want to see is Zeldris pop off. And Zeldris right now below the damage threshold realizes the actual need for him to get into this fight and get into this box. So we're going to see him continue to press this and press this aggressively. So Zeldris, while on the back foot for now, is in this fight and is dedicated to making something happen. But no, of course, as I say that, immediately starts rotating away. The pressure from the hill is coming in, though, as a player realizes Zeldris is potentially getting tagged up here from Surge. Holding on, though, Zeldris has found a minute, just a minute, to get these mini shields off. So now, effectively still in this game, and also finds him just above the damage threshold for Surge.
So many pressure points for Zeldris to possibly work upon. However, it's going to be a big uphill battle, a possibility. It could very well come into play. Just a few points off into the top 20. As looking for the possibility. A Cypher also in a very similar position. Hopefully not falling to the same exact kind of fate that was once determined out there towards Rave Cave. As this zone is pulling all the way into the midst. We haven't had this zone yet. So now players have an entirely different environment to adapt to.
You're absolutely right. Entirely in different environment, and it's a different story for some of these players that we've continued to see at the top, now struggling here to survive, struggling to stay in this one as these players continue to dwindle down. The number continues to dwindle, but we're in the third zone and 63 players remain. That literally, this isn't your common arena game here, folks. This is the upper echelon of competitive PlayStation players. These guys are at the top of the top, playing the best of the best Fortnite, and it looks like it's not going to slow down now as Lapis does find another player starting to aggress towards him. He needs to be careful, though. You look at the inventory, not much heals left. He is going to need a refresh, and now sees a fight, does try to get involved. Unfortunately, not going to be able to get the piece that he so desperately needed in that moment, but is still going to be able to survive. So survival is part of this game, but getting that refresh is going to be key to his actual survival.
The bats are dwindling, though. Has the Chrome splashes as well to possibly make a move for Lapis. Lapis now being pressured against everybody. Now is where the lobby focus comes in, but a beautiful Chrome splash to save and refurbish those builds. So gets that little bit of extra time to be able to come back, reassess the situation. And for Muddy, he's got the ability to do the same exact thing. 12 Chrome splashes in the inventory, and I believe the rotates are very much possible. However, 10 builds, man, Panda, these builds are dwindling.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. When you have to, when you take two fights and unfortunately neither fight results in you getting a refresh or the elimination points, you're going to find yourself at a huge disadvantage because of the resources you had to use to even keep those fights going for a little bit. So unfortunately, they're going to find themselves falling behind quite a bit here in these final moments. Now, though, Linuxer, who we haven't gotten to tune in with too much, is making a bit of a run here in game number 5. Great loadout, in my opinion. Does have quite literally everything they need to be successful. The only thing they're kind of missing is the material. You see 88 builds, which is a decent amount, to be fair. It's not a lot to have in zone 4, so they're going to have to start moving, and that's what we're going to see here as the Chrome splash comes out in that Chrome form. Going to continue to push away, but no, actually realizes that the launch pad is there. The awareness on an all-time high as he's able to just float on into the zone.
Absolute big brain movements is exactly what these players need to continue upon, as Lynx now has gotten in a good position here and definitely does have that opportunity to make a run up towards the top. 8 points on the board, but that definitely can shift. We've seen it time and time again here today, where players pick up an out of mind victory royale bringing a total of 40 plus points over the leaderboards, and it's a very high possibility for a lot of these players right now, and especially Joanne, who's gotten to a great positioning here in the zone.
A great position, but has to slow down here for just a moment because realistically, there's not too much going on, and there's going to be a lot of players moving in the vicinity. So if Joanne's not careful, they can easily end up getting caught out. Now, though, the focus is on any of the players that are looming close by, because on that same vein, while you do need to be careful of getting caught out, you also have an advantage to catch somebody else off guard as they rotate forward. So really finding the balance between the two is going to be super important. But for Muddy Fishy, unfortunately, they're struggling to find a bit of balance here as the chrome splashes are coming out, and not too much movement they can choose to do right now.
Muddy continues to look around. And folks, if you didn't notice there at the top left of your screen, first place heading in here to game number 5 is out of this game, falling in the top 50. Cade at 76 has fallen, so the top line goal is wide open. This is where we've seen a possibility of a player like Pete or Byla to continue to be that best player, to continue to maybe make that same kind of echelon of what we saw from him in game number 3 of 10 elims in a VR. Very big possibility, but now as the rotates continue to climb out, can anybody else make that differential?
Well, it's going to be tough for anybody to do that with the amount of players still in this, especially players like Pixovsky there in the distance, getting another elim in the feed. But for Lynn doing a good job of holding on. We continue to tune in as Lynn is just looking for those shots, looking for those tags and gathering that intel while they can. But another notable name we got to focus on is Griff here. Looks to be trying to gain a bit of a high ground spot early on, just trying to stay ahead of these tags, because realistically, the shots and the damage you can put in right now is going to define whether or not that surge is going to be a factor for you in the next few moments.
And you're essentially putting it around and kind of controlling anywhere and any possibility that the players around you can possibly do. So as the zone pulls just to the east, as he has that center zone positioning, peeking towards areas of the likes of Byla, Griff has a unique opportunity to up and escalate that possibility up at the top and kind of maneuver around, force a launch pad, and get his own rotates on his own way.
His own rotates in his own way. It's going to be tough for them to find it regardless, but for players like NDZ, who have kind of taken a bit of a fall from grace here, they were in the top 3 for a majority of this competition, and then now find themselves going closer to the 10th place spot. They need to make a turnaround. This game is going to be vital for their success moving forward. So they know this, we know this, and now it's just a matter of staying alive. And looking at this playing out here, it looks like a lot of players are fighting to stay alive. Byla does look like potentially going for a bit of an aggressive play onto Energy, but takes quite a bit of damage down there. So with the distance that is being covered there, Byla might be out, but no, the launchpad play comes through and Byla just barely survives.
A beautiful save there for Byla. However, Pixovsky is in a quite opposite kind of positioning as he's found himself in a great spot. However, for NDZ, Zay needs to be able to utilize these chrome splashes as well as possibly can as he chucks it down. Now able to take this time to not only gain that white HP, but also the shield to get them back up to fruition here with the 7th zone now kicking into high gear as we go down towards the river. Low ground is going to be a treacherous position.
So many of the top 10 here still fighting for a moment in this game, but Santic looking to take that moment away from some. Remember, Santic was one that was on the high ground, did a phenomenal job, almost won a game here not too long ago, coming in 2nd place with 5 elims. So that was actually the last game. He's looking to potentially repeat that though, and with the momentum of his game 4 performance, I could definitely see that being an option. But what is not an option for Arctis Launcher is the option to be slow and patient, because realistically, they have to put some massive numbers on the board right now if they want to walk away with some big bucks from the prizing.
And as more and more fall up towards the top as well here, Panda, as NDZ is now gone down, this leaves the entire escape open for that top 10, that top 20 to continue to be the best. And you even see there Cozy there on that mid-ground layer, still looking to make something special happen. Fox J as well. However, Das on the high ground, looking to make down anything that he's got left here to possibly make it happen. And with that loadout, I am a firm believer
Listen, I can believe, I can see it happening. I mean, this is legitimately the best loadout, in my opinion, in the game right now. I mean, you have the Chrome Splash for when you need to get off high ground and take no damage. You have literally legendary versions of the Prime Shotgun and the Hammer Assault Rifle. These are massive weapons to have in the inventory in these moments, but we got to talk about moments, because in that moment that we were just talking, Pixovsky has gone down. Another one of the top players, our champion from the last PlayStation Cup, is out of this game, meaning that players like YT Doss have an opportunity to climb the leaderboard unaffected by some of the champions we've seen in the past.
A unique chance, but the high ground is taken over by Teeny. Teeny is done being stuck down there at the bottom of the leaderboard, and Das now has a unique opportunity. Do you go up for height, or do you make that kind of low ground positional play here? And as that night zone is right around the corner, with Teeny on height, he could easily make this game end just a little bit quicker. However, with Cozy still in this lobby, it is going to be a big task to achieve.
A big task indeed, but so many top names still in this, still alive and still well. But as of right now, it does look like even Byla is out. But this is a good sign here for Voslo, as Voslo's still in the game here. Going into this, though, top 10 player, now looking to make this a top 3 situation for them. Just depends on how the game plays out. But for players like Teeny, another one we said we have to pay close attention to before these games even started, now is showing up. Game number 5 could be his.
It's a all-round possibility. The beams are too clean. Takes out Yonder. So now gonna drop down, negate the fall damage with the Chrome Splash, and be able to get this refresh here. How many max can you get here, Teeny? And that's gonna be at least 20. So now looking down for more refreshes. And with 11 players alive here, Paya, everyone is getting closer and closer together, looking for the shots to connect as FNO continues to go down there on that low ground layer. Fights continue to break out, and Arzen is capitalizing, however, drops into another box. So all chaos is ensuing here.
The chaos doesn't stop. Cozy, though, ends up cleaning up an elimination, barely staying alive there. 61 HP, does have shield, does have potentially the opportunity to get it back, but no, unfortunately, somebody Chrome Splashes directly in the box, and Cozy will be out of this game. But now it's up to Arzen. 7 eliminations here. A turnaround game of the century as he breaks into the box. Huge elimination comes through there for Squeezy, or onto Squeezy, as Arzen is just staying alive.
Staying alive with the 1v1. The big shot connects from Teeny. With only one build, it held on there till the final moments, and it worked out well in his favor to rank up more and more and more towards the top end of that leaderboard. And I best believe he's going to be moving towards that top 10.
He has to be. I mean, what an incredible finish. I mean, look, again, the caliber of players that we're facing here are top tier, the upper echelon of PlayStation players. So not only are we going to see incredible gameplay, but we're going to see incredible finishes to these games. And every game has been a different player winning. That's kind of impressive, because I'm going to be honest with you. Most of these competitions, even FNCS, for example, have players who win multiple games because they're just that consistent, right? No, every player in this lobby is consistent. And so they're easily just taking the win from one another. And which is, honestly, it makes it that much more exciting, Lash. But one game remains, man. One final moment for these players to capitalize on and potentially walk away with a chunk of change.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for what these players have just kind of waiting underneath the sleeve, because, hey, you got to bring your best for the last. And that's exactly what we're already witnessing. And I do want to point out one thing that was there. Big Phase Mongrel made it into the top 3 of that endgame.
You're right. Listen, he's a fan favorite. I've been looking at the Twitch chat, right? I know we're out here on YouTube, everywhere else, but I've been looking at the chat, and I see him as a favorite in the chat. So shout out to the Big Phase Mongrel making it into the top 3 to finish that game. But will it be enough? We're going to see here in a moment once these leaderboards are ready, because there's only one game left, and the leaderboard right now, it's going to tell a bit of a story going into this final game. Who's going to need to do what to place where, right? And there's going to be certain players that they're in contention for the top 3, but then there's others that just want to place in the top 10, place in the top 20, just find themselves in that next threshold of money to walk away with a little bit of extra bucks in the pocket.
I mean, that's what's the story is going to collide into, especially for those top end players, like you mentioned there, those top 20s, those top 10s,
Yeah.
and even you kind of look into the shuffles of that 30 and 40. They definitely can make a big climb. There's not that much of a point differential between every single slot basically anymore. I mean, from what we've already seen in that just past fifth game, there was a lot of top players that went down early. There was a lot in the top 10, top 20 that were able to bring up big placement points. I think this already close leaderboard has gotten even closer.
It has. It 100% has. I think this last game is going to be hard to call. This whole competition has been hard to call. Literally, Lash knows this. When we come into these we can kind of predict. We get a good idea of a top 5. Then we get a good idea of a top 10, maybe a top 20, right? But in this competition, I couldn't even tell you any of the top. Like, I couldn't predict a single one. You could ask me to predict the top 50 going into this competition, and I couldn't. It's not because of lack of trying, because trust me, we tried. But these players are just so consistently good, and it's hard to call one over the other. Now, obviously, you got players like Byla, who may find themselves at the top of the leaderboard after that game. We'll see here shortly. But it's going to be tough to call because this is it, folks. This is the last opportunity for these players to run away with it in Game 6.
The hype continues to rise right now. And hey, for those of y'all down on the leaderboard, I want to give y'all a bump of motivation here. This is your time, your chance to make a name for yourself. If you come away with this final victory royale, you're coming out swinging. You are going long, and you are truly making a name for yourself heading into the next PlayStation Cup, because that's the goal. You want to build your brand, build your name, build your competition, and I believe they have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's a lot of opportunities here for these players still yet to come. I mean, look, the leaderboard is going to be telling once we get a chance to look at it before Game 6, but it's going to be close. I do think Byla's probably in the top 3. And I do think Cade might still be in the top 3. Might have slipped in just barely. But you know what? I don't think we're going to find out. I think we're going to keep it a mystery for you all at home. I think it's almost time for Game 6. And Game 6 will be the focus for us here. So we won't even take the look ahead of time. We want it to be a surprise for you all, as now the battle bus is unloaded and these players are dropping in.
Here we go, folks. Game number 6 of the EU Fortnite PlayStation Cup, and the players are jumping off into the battle bus for the final time of the day. Now, Panda, where do you think the winning player will drop here? Because, I mean, we've got that little bit of hint of where everyone is. You thinking more of a Cade kind of route, or are you thinking a Byla kind of route, or a little bit of the third-party movement?
I mean, look, if I'm going to say Cade, that means I'm going to also say that Greasy Grove is going to be the winning POI when it's triple conned. And I'm going to be honest, in my eyes, that's just not possible. But Byla landing over at Rocky Reels, while Rocky Reels actually right now is triple con too. So it's actually tough to call. So when we went into this, when we looked at our drop map going into the competition, it was 2 and 3. And unfortunately, it looks like it's switched up quite a bit. But what is not switching up is Pixovsky having a great start there with the first elimination, but looks to get another one as a player just creeping on in through the vent. If he's not careful, though, he could end up getting caught out guard. And no, Pixovsky, our champion from last month's PlayStation Cup, is out here in the final game.
The Titan has fallen, and Pixovsky unfortunately going down there at an ending line of what I believe was 67 points. An unfortunate there fall. However, Byla is testing a similar line here at the fight of Rocky Reels. There's another player out in the distance, but for Byla, he needs to be careful what he's got right now, because he could be another unfortunate fall within the top 5.
He definitely could be, and Byla needs to be careful, as now YoFate is looking to hunt him, and Byla is out. Our top, what is happening? Some of our top players already out here in game number 6. So Byla is going to be sent back to the lobby. That means he's finishing this off with 82 points. That is not going to be enough, not only to take the first spot, but maybe even the top 5.
A risky, slippery slope here that is affecting everyone. As Arksy here also in the battle, and that's going to be Tytech able to capitalize on that battle. But our Two players that have been so consistent throughout the day within the top 10 have already gone down in Viola and Pixovsky. So this leaves, once again, the door open for so many different avenues.
I mean, call me Bruno Mars, because we seem to be leaving the door open here for these players to continue to climb on the leaderboard. And looking at this, going into this game, it was Pixovsky in 9th and Viola in 2nd. So that is two major spots, which, if I'm being honest, and I had to predict something here, I think Pixovsky falls out of the top 10 because of this game. And for Viola, he might fall out of the, I know he's definitely going to fall out of the top 3, but he could even potentially fall out of the top 5.
And that's the closeness that we had kind of talked about between game 5 and here game 6, as this is going to be an interesting moment for all of the players that are just knocking on that back door, waiting for the opportunity to come in, because heading into this game, it's been so close, within a grasping rate of only 20 points. That is less than a victory royale. So anybody, like we mentioned, within that top 30, top 40, they have a chance to rank up here at the top.
They do indeed. One big game can change it all. And look, I'll be honest with you, right? So 30th place going into this, 41 points, right? 41 points. So let's say they win the game. That's 30 points. Let's say they get 10 elims. That's 20 points by themselves in elims. So if they get a 50-point game plus their 40 points that they have in 30 or 41 points they have in 31st place or 30th place, that is a change not only to the top 10, but potentially into the top 5. That's how close this competition is. One game can change it all here for these players, and it looks like this could be another top 5 player going down in Voslo if they're not careful.
Voslo, though, does seem to catch a bit of a breath right now as searching around for anything, as this loadout is definitely not anywhere where you want it to be. The not so commonly carried Ranger assault rifle, and then the ammo limited Stinger or SMG of the rapid fire, as Voslo is not at all where you want to be, like we had mentioned. However, with players disengaging, it does seem to be that he gets the second chance of life.
The second chance, but will it be enough? That's the question here for Raizu, as he finds himself in first place, but he's got to stay alive. He cannot fall like Viola. He cannot fall like Pixovsky. He needs to remain in this game as long as possible to pad the lead that he has as of right now. But all it takes is one play, one overextension in a moment that unfortunately is crucial, and he could end up going down. That's the name of Fortnite, especially Fortnite solos. It is so tough to call how this is going to play out, but if you're Raizu, your goal is to just stay alive.
Staying alive, as we take a look at our current first place player at the moment, Raizu, dropping in here at Lustrous Lagoon. Throughout the day, he has been contested by Yahoo. However, it seems to be a bit of more, hey, I'm just taking my spot and I am gone. I'm taking my route, and it's worked well because he's been able to utilize the chromified POI to get those very valuable chrome splashes.
Yeah, I mean, look, chrome splashes are everything in competitive Fortnite. I think we were talking about it recently, SBG, myself, Monster D-Face. We were talking about the value of some of the items in the game, and chug splashes is in the top 3 because just the variety of uses that they have and the variety of situations that they are useful, it surpasses any other item, in my opinion. So chug splashes, if you can find a stack of them, even multiple stacks of them, like, these bad boys are just incredible, and they're so powerful to have. And it's funny because most of the time when we think Fortnite and we think powerful, we're thinking a pump shotgun, we're thinking some of the stronger weapons in the game. But no, you have to start thinking more about the utility and the heals, because they have just as much of an impact, if not more sometimes, than the weapons that we see in the inventory.
Definitely. Absolute banger point there from Panda. Am I right here, folks? Hey, Panda's just that guy. However, as we take a look at the scale of the players, this zone right now closing in towards that loot lake area, as energy continues to look to involve that energy just a little bit more and envelop that into his gameplay. As being at 21 points, it kind of goes along to that similar point that you had mentioned, where it is just that close. All you need realistically is to get into that top 5 of placement and just enough elims, a few, even several elims that can just rank you up just as high as you want to be, up towards the sky. And honestly, at the moment, for these players, they're just racking up that placement. It is just full stalemates all around.
Yeah, full stalemate indeed, but I'm excited to see it play out as Energy still in this game, Ronity still in this game, and Grotto still in this game. All 3 players that we've spent quite a bit of time tuning in with and have found some success, but unfortunately Griff, one of those players that we have talked about, is out here in game 6, and that is going to be the end of his PlayStation Cup.
An unfortunate fall once again, and that top 10 is seriously hitting a big snag, unfortunately, and hopefully you got to shorten those drapes a little bit to make a little bit more room for the sunshine, as maybe that sunshine, that bright star light, could be a player like Ronity, who is just outside of the top 10, on the outside looking in. And on the outside looking in, it kind of plays into this fight right now based off of looking at Grotto, seeing if maybe makes the dangerous peak, but the disengage does come through. We mentioned it there in game number 4 and 5, where the disengagements are truly just rapidly increasing.
The increase is real, the movement is real, and the final moments are real as Astra King needs something. You see the launch pad in the inventory. You're probably going to have to pop that here soon, because you have to get involved. You have to start finding players to fight. And unfortunately, there's not too many players in the area. Now, Reality Tree does look like it's housing 1 player at this moment. But with how far they're pushing away from zone, it's definitely a risky play.
Risky is the business, but you got to be able to do that to reap the rewards, a possibility. As I'm kind of wondering right now, Panda, where is Astra? It's in the back of my mind right now, because we witnessed it again. The down game was game number 5. Are we gonna see just Astra chilling in the final moments of the end game?
You know what? I gotta see. So hold on. Let's look at the leaderboard real quick and see where they finished off. So they didn't finish off in the top 20. Let's see. It looks like so Akira came in 21st. It looks like at the end of that game, which means this is their comeback game. They went down in 99th place in the last game. So if the trend continues, I mean, Akira wins with like 30 elims, I think, if the trend keeps going in the way that it has. So I'm looking forward to seeing the game moving forward here for Akira, because they're still in it. They're still alive, while even more of our top 10 aren't.
It is the momentum shift that comes in throughout all the tournaments. And I like that call. And also, you snuck in 30 elims there. That sounds a bit wild. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's easy. You aren't dropping 30 elims in solo PlayStation Cups? Like, come on, Lash.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I'm more of the laid back kind of play style, a little bit lower elims, high placement, hierarchy. Consistency is the game, and the name of the game I play here, as Leo is doing that exact same thing. A very consistent player throughout the day. However, he needs to break that same line, make it even better, because the consistency so far has not been the top echelon, which needs to be the game now. Made it to those final moments of an end game many, or at least once, times before so far today, and hopefully can reignite that same energy.
Yeah, the energy is there. It's just a matter of who's going to channel it, who's going to channel in the right way, who's going to let the nerves set in. Like, it really is the final moments here for these players, and sometimes the nerves of that pressure end up winning, and that's the last thing they want. And for players like Leo, who have been in this situation time and time again, they know how to handle this. They know how to handle the high pressure, the intensity of the moment, but they're going to come out on top as long as they remain consistent. But for D-Dodger, he's just looking to get in. He just does not want to wait. He realizes the value of the eliminations here, but if he's not careful, the zone is still pulling away. The storm is almost to his back, and at that point, he will have a lot more issues than just getting an elimination.
The continual backtracking is what's scaring me right now for D-Dodger. Been in this situation many times throughout today's tournament. and hopefully waiting to get into the box to find this elim. And as a beam came through one of the third-party element, can D-Dodger find that one shot, that sneaky damage coming through? But Leo is able to bring the fight back to D-Dodger, and D-Dodger once again will fall, unfortunately, in the mid-game, and that will be the end of his run here in the October PlayStation Cup.
While his run is over for now, there's more PlayStation Cups to come. So if you want to get involved as well, just like Leo, just like anybody else here, you just go over to compete.playstation.com, get involved with this competition, and come challenge yourself against the best of the best and show if you have what it takes to hang out here in what is essentially the equivalent of the PlayStation FNCS.
These console warriors gotta be working to show up here in the PlayStation Cup. And now, I do believe that it is going to be one wild ride here in PlayStation Cup history, especially now here in October, as this is Game 6. And like we had kind of alluded to earlier, 3 major players are down within our top 10 here, folks. So, the opportunity for a very new up-and-comer that you need to follow within here, these PlayStation Cups, they're right on the horizon.
They're on the horizon and they're willing to take the spot. Look, these players, some of them have been around for a while. Byla has been around for a while. Pixovsky, Cade, so many incredibly talented players, well-known players too. But we may see somebody who maybe doesn't have as many followers or has as much engagement. And that's the beauty of the PlayStation Cup. It gives this opportunity to showcase not only the upper echelon of players, but also the players that are that good, but don't have the same focus, don't have the same exposure, because the PlayStation Cup brings to light some of the most talented players in the PlayStation scene, which is not often something we get to see, which is what makes these cups so exciting.
That is the great thing about Fortnite, as this is the amazing part where we witness the greatness arise, the story of possibility. And here for Leo, he's not letting the foot off the gas pedal. And unfortunately, that will push them into an unfortunate position to where they fall, where 46 points will unfortunately be the ending line there, as coming down in the back end. This is where we see here, Panda, our more movement of the back end top 20 are now starting to fall here. So this is where big risers like Jazz can come out on top.
Yeah, look, I'm seeing enough movement. I'll be honest, these guys are actually moving, and not only are they moving in the direction they need to take the fights that they need to take, but they're also moving in the zone, which has been a change of pace here for a lot of these players. But Kurama needs to be careful. Ends up chrome splashing right back into the box that he just escaped from, and unfortunately gets caught off guard as Nomus ends up picking up that elimination. But now looking in the elimination feed, it's F now, F in. One of those players we watched closely, almost won a game not too long ago, is now just finding elimination after elimination. 2 elims on the board at least that we've seen come through the elimination feed. So that's going to be massive for them. But for Nomus, we switch back over to him. They find another player. They are just not slowing down.
Not slowing down one bit, and especially on this cluster of low ground at the minute, where it's kind of a determining factor of whether or not either of these teams can bounce back off of the benefactor of these chrome splash, all chromified walls right now. Is it's all about, yo, who's gonna make the first move here? Because it's not gonna be me hacking on that wall of 450 HP. So for Nomus, realizes that, he's like, all right, I gotta hit this rotate. I gotta get my positioning. It's exactly what he does, and now leaving the rest of the players out into the back end of the dust.
Yeah, doing a good job of just pushing the pole, pushing the scale here. Quite a bit, because that's what you need to do. You need to tip this. You need to tip the scale in your favor and do whatever you can to make this game be yours. And for NDZ, while they haven't had the best last couple games, this final game is everything, especially with the amount of players in the top 10 that have gone down. It is their moment to strike and take advantage and walk away with more money than they potentially could have before this game even started.
NDZ, the perfect example of that, like you said there, as just on the back end of that top 10, was once in the top 10 throughout the entire day, but now this is the point in time where NDZ needs to clutch up and have the greatest game throughout the day. Has the loadout to do so, has those chrome splashes, which have been commonly used throughout the day. Now, can NDZ use it to the best of his ability and have the greatest game so far?
Yeah, the game is here. And for players like Murox and Raizu, they find themselves in a precarious position, right? While they're on the leaderboard, I mean, especially Raizu's up at the top, they also can go down at any moment. The game is so volatile because game 6 creates this aggression that is unmatched. And we actually see Raizu there take out the other player we're literally talking about in that moment. And that just goes to show that the volatility is untraceable. It is difficult to map out what we're going to see next, but whatever does happen next is going to define whether or not who's walking away with the big bucks and who finds themselves slipping further down.
I'm ready for the aggression of what these players are antsy to bring up here as NDZ preparing those chrome splashes. However, has to be aware of everyone below him, because that is the layer. When you're chrome splashing around, you have to be aware of everybody down there on that low ground layer, being environmentally aware, and NDZ is utilizing that perfectly, practically out in the middle of the open, and nobody is focusing him, so now gets the freest rotate. Meanwhile, players behind him are like, all right, bet you're getting this free rotate, let me get that too.
You know what? I respect it, right? Like if you see somebody rotating forward and they're not getting tagged up, follow that path. That means it's a pretty clear path to take. But you should also be mindful of the players that are around. You should do your own kind of investigating before you start moving, because if you don't and you are that player that gets caught out, man, do you get caught out, especially when the lobby is as tight as it is right now. Because if they hear one person shooting, they're all going to look in the same direction, and unfortunately you don't want that direction to be you.
And if you let your superhero cape fly a little bit too long, it's definitely going to get caught by the wind of some of the most aggressive players that have the hitch on them, that are ready to go upon the wagon. As now Fox J looking absolutely fantastic, one of those players that are just outside of the top 10 heading into this game, and working for that positioning, because that is where the big bucks truly come into play as the prize pool ranks up a lot more into that top 10. So you know Fox J, a very experienced player here in the PlayStation Cups, is not going to let this one down.
Not going to let it down and not going to slow down. They're going to continue to press forward, just like Raizu's continue to press on. Despite them only getting one elimination in this game here, that's actually kind of a trend for Raizu. Looking at his play, like the way that they've played this out, 9th place 3 elims, 18th place 1 elim, 7th place 1 elim, 13th place 0 elims, and 3rd place 2 elims. So that's not overly aggressive. So the eliminations, while they haven't necessarily been high, it's been more of a placement focus, and that's worked. So maybe we need to rethink what we think last, because we're too busy looking at players like Byla who just get 10 elims and win a game.
I mean, that's the exciting part. People necessarily don't see the underlying work of what it takes to get within those consistent top 10 realms of placement. And you can see my man absolutely flying all around as Raizu now able to get into a great position here. Raizu in the most fantastic position, seeing all sights, working all around, working all movements, all layers, as Raizu is absolutely chilling here. And as the zone pulls, this is where it's the test of time. Can Raizu lock in first?
Can Raizu lock in? I mean, it's going to be a question to be answered here, as Cade now is locking in, knows that he's in contention for the top spot and needs to just stay alive. You see 0 eliminations on the board. That's going to be a bit of a slip there for Cade, as Cade finds himself stuck with the chrome splashes. You have to be careful here in these final moments. You cannot rely on anything to be consistent, and unfortunately for Cade, that's going to take a ton of damage from him. Now, though, back in chrome form, he is going to use this to heal up. But remember, if you just spend time in storm, it takes a little bit longer for that healing effect to take place, and that's what we just saw there from Cade, as Cade now just barely staying alive.
This has got me on the edge of my feet right now for Cade, dangerously playing this game, but finds the clutch med miss to bring him up to a total of 100 HP before the zone pressurizes out. As Teeny picking up an Elim in the feed. So big competition still reigns out.
Ryzu's down.
Was one step behind him and first place out with Ryzu down. Cade picks up another Elim and Cade is now fighting for that first place spot.
This could be it. Cade just needs one more elimination and a few placement points, and he could end up taking it, walking away with the top spot in the competition. And he knows this. Cade getting a massive elimination there, but unfortunately finds himself stuck. He needs to start moving, and needs to start moving quick, barely making his zone. One hit will take him out, and he needs to be mindful of that. The med miss now in the inventory is going to save him, but only save him for a bit. The movement now, he needs to get on his feet, on his toes, and start pushing. He needs to run like a marathon, but no, Cade is out, and it's gonna be close. I don't know if it was enough.
It might not be enough. However, now is the line of who else is still alive. I see Teeny down there in the mid-ground layer. Still has a great opportunity to rise up here at the top. However, now is the moment of the placement here in the bottom 20 to continue to rank up into that top 10 kind of area. And FNOX is doing a great job raining down the fire from that high ground layer and has a big opportunity at task. But for Teeny, down on low HP, has a grand opportunity up ahead. Now can he get up here with 0 builds?
I'm going to tell you this now. I believe Teeny has finished with more points than Cade, so this is very close. I'm not sure where Ryzu finished, so this is going to come down to the wire. How much longer can Teeny survive? Teeny taking a ton of damage, and no, as I say it, he is out here.
88 points. Teeny down. Raffalo, though, in the back end. The top of the leaderboard is completely open, wide, for anybody high in the sky to do it. As now, FNOX leading the way for anybody on the back end. The high motivation, the grind set coming in. As you see, 52 points right down below Slate as well. Within the top 6, still has that opportunity to climb.
The opportunity to climb, but it's so close. There's so much on the line here for these players, and everything counts. Every moment counts. Every elimination counts, and every shot counts in these final moments. Of Slates goes for it, misses the shot, and unfortunately, he's going to go down. It's actually Squeeze. Squeeze going to squeeze out another elimination for them. Tiger plays just above, now holding on, but FNOX actually takes a ton of damage. 8 HP in a dream, but the player actually slips just below, and Squeeze is now out. It is a 1v1v1. 3 players remain, and FN now actually could be our new leader. 90 points on the board. That could be everything.
He could have the chance, but falling at 90. Tiger at 89 brings up to 94, and I think that may have just been enough to overtopple over into first place.
Lash, that might have been it. Tiger might have just slipped into the first spot with the victory royale. What an absolute way to finish. We've been saying this the entire time, and now you know it is no joke. There is no way to predict who is going to walk away with the win. Nobody in the top 3 is taking this win if I think the result is going to be how it is.
It is so close. We saw the realm of players picking up towards that 80-point echelon and then just moving ever so slightly towards that 90-point goal. We saw there Ryzu in the final moments. He had a round in that 90 range. So we know anybody within 80 did not reach that. But that VR and that final Elim may have just barely been enough.
That is wild to think about. This is going to be so close. And man, the leaderboard, oof, this is going to be a tough one because, again, we're talking about what was a pretty significant lead, and these players played consistently. We saw Cade in the final moments. We saw Ryzu in the final moments. Despite them being in the top 3, it still might not have been enough because players like Tiger were able to come back, not only win the game, get great eliminations, but do just enough to scrape into the top 3. But will it be enough for the top 1? That's what really matters here. Despite a bunch of these positions taking money, the top 1 is everything. It's the bragging rights, the championship title for this player. And we will soon find out here, Lash.
It's right around the corner. I can feel it. I can feel it. And the crazy thing is that none of our predictions, like you had said there, and folks, like, if you were listening there, when Fanu was saying that we did not know specifically who was exactly taking it home, He's flat out right. And not because of the lack of knowledge. Nope. It's because these players are all so close and so high, top tier of the echelon here in the PlayStation Cup scene. And it is just incredible.
It is incredible, but look, it's almost time for us to crown the new champion of the Fortnite PlayStation Cup. But before we do, I got to tell you all at home how you have the opportunity to compete in this PlayStation Cup just like this next time. So make sure to get involved. And all you have to do is go to compete.playstation.com for your chance to get involved, get entered, and show us what you have. We would love, Lash, myself, we would love to have you on the screen showcase your talents and abilities in a PlayStation Cup. So make sure to get signed up for the next one because there are more to come. And now it is almost time. Man, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm surprised Byla had fallen as early as he did, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm also kind of happy he did because it's exciting to be able to showcase some incredible new names that just slipped into the top 3.
It is an unfortunate thing to say when that happens, but it creates such a magnificent moment of what we saw there in those final moments of Game 6, where it's like, we got no clue who's there at the top. We could have a completely different top 10 that we've had all day, which is honestly just the best part.
It is the best part. And here it is. It is almost time here. So get involved. If you're not involved already, compete.playstation.com, get signed up for the next one and get ready, right? Get some solo practice in. Make sure you're competing with some friends in preparation for this. Exchange ideas. I think that's the biggest thing. But now it is time. And wait, it's not even Tiger that walked away with the first spot. It is actually Squeeze, who just barely, Lash, just barely gets through and takes it.
Squeezing out that first place at 106. And Tiger, who we saw take home that Victory Royale, and the points that we even saw there at the end were not completely to what Tiger had accomplished there. 102, 4 points was the differential, so Tiger needed 2 more elims to even tie it. However, for F and out, clutching up there into the top 3 at 94. Raizu, though, what was once first place there, now falling to 4th in 93, and then Teeny at 92, Cade at 91, and then dropping down to 7th place at Byla at 82. So all of our players that did fantastic throughout the first top 3, throughout first of the 5 games, unfortunately slipping down there.
They're slipping down, but we got to highlight our game winners as well. You got Leo in the game number 1. Game number 2 was Ronity taking it. Byla taking game 3. Pyla taking game 4. Teeny taking game 5. And of course, that amazing finish for Tiger Plays, which resulted him in a 2nd place jump on the leaderboard. Honestly, I couldn't be more happy and thrilled with just the amount of sheer competition we were able to watch unfold here, Lash. Just impressive time and time again. These talented PlayStation players get to do. But if you find yourself 21st to 40th, do not feel let down. More PlayStation Cups to come, and this is just a good practice run for you to get into the top 20.
And I do believe from what we've seen all around in today, a lot of players within those 30s to 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even down to the 100th place, they have that great chance, like you said, to rank up even more in future PlayStation Cups as we take a look down here under the scale. And you're not missing out on much either, because these players between our 31st and 60th rank have already bagged out in that $400 range. And as we continue to take a look from 61st to 100th is $200. So anybody that you've seen, folks, on your camera, they are the top of the top, the best of the best, and you need to be paying attention to them.
You definitely do. You got to pay attention here, folks, because this is not an easy feat. To even get to the PlayStation Cup finals is not an easy task. And so for these Fortnite players to be able to do what they do and walk away with some of this amazing prizing, like, shout out to them. This moment is all about congratulating them and congratulating the opportunity they were able to seize. But again, if you want this same opportunity, compete.playstation.com is your home. It's your place to find it and your place to get involved. But that's going to be it from Lash and I. Thank you all so much. And Lash, final thoughts before we send off?
I would just say congrats to all of the players that showed their true grind. As I've seen it already, they are putting in the practice, they're putting in the hours to fly up the leaderboards in the final moments and have that determination. Congrats to you all.
Hey, again, congratulations. But that's going to be it from us. Signing off for Panda and Lash today. Thank you all so much for hanging out. And until next time, take it easy and peace.
PlayStation.
That's the best. We got the quickest triggers in the whole Wild West. We got sweats and deaths taking odds on bets. Ain't no telling who the upper hand gets. We got man cakes and pancakes. We got a whole stack of trouble when the action breaks. We got gunfights every night. We got butter plate specials that'll treat you right. Come on down and rip some money's going on up to Surf and Nightly. Yeah, 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 yeah. Come on down. Come on down to the butter barn. Come on down. Come on down to the butter barn. We got buckets of bacon and stacks of jacks. Jugs of maple, you can throw it on back. Kick it back in front of the fire. Take a load off to your heart's desire. Got a cannon up front, one out back. We got home style cooking and that's a fact.